Good afternoon. Welcome to the craziness. It's been a crazy day. It's been kind of hectic, been kind of busy. And then I pile things. I'm getting grumbled at by the dog. I pile things on, which doesn't help. So I was out talking to the landlord for a little bit, and I was talking to the landlord for a bit, and so that put me a little behind getting up here to start the show. In fact, I didn't get the Facebook show set up in what I call in time. I can start it at any time, but 10 minutes ahead of time you have to have it set up or to schedule it afterward. Not a big deal. But anyway, then last minute, as I've got Facebook about set up, then I find out that Facebook has changed their streaming requirements to secured servers. So I had to go through and reset up my software, and I had it wrong the first time. Obviously, I came up for a short time, and I went right back down on YouTube, and that's because I had to get settings right. So my apologies for that, for being a little bit late. Wow. Where to start? So I put out a video earlier today. Many of you probably know that already. And it's actually probably one of my fastest growing videos as far as views. I've never had anything like this, and I'll tell you what, it's absolutely from the heart, and I can't urge people enough to go to the different news outlets out there and, ask them, why are you not talking about this documentary that this Nipsey Hussle was getting ready to do? Because this is enormous. This is huge. How many doctors have we seen that have, been murdered or, quote unquote, committed suicide, that have come up with different treatments that are successful in treating different conditions? I'm just at a loss here. I'm absolutely at a loss here. And when you have 70 patients show up, okay, 70, we're not talking about one here or there. When you have 70 patients show up at the Supreme Court and say, and prove they had medical records proving that they did have AIDS, and then they had medical records proving that it was cured, that it was gone. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty big deal, right? And this is the first time. If it wouldn't have been for the murder of Nipsey Hussle, I'd have had no idea about this. I'd never heard a word about it before this. And so I think, regardless of what your possible views may be on rap music or, whatever, this guy is owed something. This guy is owed our attention, all right? Not just this rapper who was murdered, but also this doctor who was murdered. They deserve our attention. They deserve us going and making comments on social media of these different news agencies that are refusing to mention the documentary. Right? They'll talk about his clothing store where he was, shot near. They'll talk about his rap career. They'll talk about his movie career because he's been in other movies and stuff. But I haven't seen one yet. Not mainstream. I haven't seen one mainstream news yet talk about this documentary. So it's important. Over the weekend, and this is what I want to talk about a little bit, it leads right into that. Over the weekend, Jen and myself had watched the documentary Snowden. And if you have not seen that, it is a must. It is amazing the information that came out in that. And to my knowledge, everything that's in that documentary is real. It's the truth. There wasn't nothing that was exaggerated or lied about. And there is one scene in particular that I want to point out, because if you're not paying close attention, you will miss it. Guaranteed you'll miss it. There was a scene to where they were looking into a man's family, as and I believe it was his daughter-in-law, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, she was I want to say in Paris or something like that. She had a laptop that was sitting on a desk, and the lid was opened up, and they literally just, boom, connected right to that laptop and activated the webcam on the laptop. Now, we all know that they can do this, but this is the part you want to pay attention to. That laptop was turned off. And it's clearly said in the video, but it's just that split second that it's said. Pay attention to that. If you watch that documentary, Snowden, pay close attention to that. But I still haven't gotten to what I want to talk about. All right, this is the most important part of all of that. The media, the news media, after Snowden, changed. And it really didn't dawn on me until watching that documentary. Because in watching that documentary, here I'm watching all these different news outlets, people like Wolf Blitzer and stuff like that, and they're talking about Snowden, and they're wanting to dig in with everything they've got to find out as much information as possible to be able to let you know. Now, when's the last time your news outlets have done that? Since Snowden. In fact, they didn't even do it with WikiLeaks. Okay? They talked about WikiLeaks, but did they really get involved with a bunch of investigative reporting and really boots on the ground type of reporting when it came to WikiLeaks? No. That changed after Snowden. And now, for those that are even somewhat awake, it's very clear that our government is in complete control of the mainstream news. Absolutely complete control. See, there's a lot of people that buy this left versus right narrative and all that. I'm so far beyond that, it's unreal. And I notice there's all these different stories that come out that they don't get any true reporting. The important stories. Look at Nebraska, for instance. Look at the Midwest with all this flooding, which is quite interesting to me because I can't possibly, for the life of me, figure out why they would want to suppress what is going on with the flooding in the Midwest, unless they were, for some reason, at fault. And I'm not saying they were. I'm not going down that conspiracy road. But what I'm getting at is, it is what it is. But we have to take up for where they quit. And this is why I put out that challenge today. Okay? Because if we push, folks, there are so many things. You all know that I vape an electronic cigarette, right? Evil Rick vapes an electronic cigarette. Tons of people vape, right? I couldn't tell you how many people that I'm responsible for getting into vaping. At least into the hundreds. I can tell you that much. Into the hundreds. When vaping came to the United States, and I've talked about this a little before, I was boots on the ground. I was elbows deep in it. And even though I still smoked at the time, I'm just being candid with you, I seen the potential, I seen the value. I just wasn't ready to quit smoking yet, okay? And there are a lot of people. We used to have live video chats to where we would sit there, and I did vape, don't get me wrong, but I also smoked. We would sit there and vape on camera, on live video, in chat rooms, and they set up schedules. We had shifts, okay? And people would come to the chat rooms and they would talk to us about vaping. People that didn't know anything about it, some people that had some experience, some people would hang out that knew quite a bit. And we would help people get started in vaping. I was there from the get-go. In fact, I've got merchandise that has still not been released to me that was seized by the FDA at the port. Okay? Over $1,000 worth of merchandise, right? I'll never see it, and I know that. But what I'm getting at is we were at the front lines of this information war when it come to vaping and electronic cigarettes, okay? But it was because of our persistence. It was because of our voice, and when I say voice, I mean our scream, that we were able to at least keep things bay at the level they are today. If it wasn't for us, vaping, electronic cigarettes would have been completely banned in this country long before now. Okay? If the pro-Second Amendment supporters would speak out even half as much as the vapors, we wouldn't be seeing all these red flag laws. You wouldn't be seeing these quote-unquote high-capacity magazine laws. I'm telling you. You know, when you have a large mass of people that say not just no, but hell no, you get results. You get results. And so that's why I put out that challenge, and I mean that challenge from the bottom of my heart. I want people to go to their local news media, and I want them to hold them to task. Ask them and keep asking them over and over again, why won't you talk about this documentary? Because once we put them on a spot to where they know they need to, they have to say something to save face, because believe me, we can get them to that point, then they are going to go to others. They're going to start actually doing investigative reporting. They're going to actually call up some people and say, hey, is there any possible way that there was some connections with this murder, with this documentary? And the more we push, the more questions that are going to be asked. We need to do this, folks. This is huge. What we have in the palm of our hands is enormous. What we can do right now is change the course of history when it comes to medicine and big pharma. We have that opportunity now if we act. That's a big responsibility. And there's a lot at stake. They've been using us as test subjects now for God knows how long, preventing us from having treatments that actually work, poisoning us with the treatments that they want to give us. We have an opportunity here to set some things straight. And I see that. I see the same opportunity with this as what I seen when I vaped on my first electronic cigarette. I do. Same opportunity. Now's the time. Now's the time. We have to, and it goes beyond this, okay? We need to start holding media to task, and not just mainstream media, but we also need to hold to task alternative media. You've got all these different alternative media out there that's running with all these stupid, crazy stories, right? So they can get views, so they can get people to follow them. We have to start calling them out. Plain and simple, we have to start calling them out. Because alternative news, alternative media is under attack too. And the more these idiots are allowed to spew their nonsense, the harder it's going to be for us to be able to stay in existence. Those that are actually telling the truth. Plus, it sheds a bad light on all of us. You know, if we were all compared to Alex Jones, could you imagine? And I have respect for Alex. Alex started out great. He did. I followed Alex. I followed Alex closely. Started out great. If you've never seen the documentary America, I think it's Destruction by Design, you have to see that. Amazing work. And you will learn so much in that documentary. And I can tell you the things he covered in that documentary were true and correct. But I think the money monster came Alex's way. And I think that's what spun him. And that's part of the reason, of several reasons, why we demonetized on YouTube. Okay, that's why. Because I don't want people to think, for any reason, that money has anything to do with what we're doing here or why we're doing it. Yes, we have an Amazon link. Yes, I appreciate it very much so if you go to Amazon via our link. and that way we get credit for some sales. It throws a little our way. But it has nothing to do with the news. Okay? I don't want to, if people want to donate, they think we do good and they want to support us and stuff, that's welcome. Go to our website, thewatchmannews.com. There's a donate button. And thank you. We appreciate it. It does truly help us, and it's going to come back in the show because we have just now started putting ourselves in a position to be able to do more do-it-yourself stuff, do more reviews on stuff. Okay? Just forked out $139 for a camera, which isn't a lot. I know that. Okay? But it's a lot for us. And I did that so that I can bring more stuff to you, so that we can be more of what we aspired to be. Okay? And so that helps that. But it's not about that. And that's why we demonetize. And I challenged others. I made that challenge to other alternative news at that time, if you recall, for them to demonetize. Take the money away from it. You won't see us starting up a Patreon channel. You won't see us. We're not in it for that. You can tell somebody's intent by their actions. Don't listen to their words. Watch their actions. And that goes for everything all the time. Okay? Let me give you an example. You've got all these different prepper channels and stuff like that. And, a lot of them have started up their own Patreon accounts, and for X amount of money a month, you can go and get this exclusive content. What are they looking for? They're looking for a paycheck. Okay? My views on that, and I'm not holding anything against them, by the way, but what I am saying is, odd to say it, but put your money where your mouth is. Okay? If you're there to get information out, to enlighten people, to help people, then there shouldn't be dollar signs attached to that. And so, I could not even sleep at night if I was putting out there information for all of you and not just expecting, but demanding payment for it. Okay? I just think it's as wrong as sin. And I'm not judging those that do. Don't get me wrong, because I am a strong capitalist. If you can make money by having a YouTube channel or by doing this, more power to you. More power to you. It comes down to morals. Okay? It comes down to morals. And I'm not a judge for anybody else's morals. Just the way it is. I'm an odd duck. I'm a very odd duck. I'm just telling you, for us, it wouldn't set right for me. Okay? It just wouldn't set right with me at all. So anyway, we need to hit these. The reason why I spoke to that is because that's what mainstream media is now. It's all about money. Okay? I never seen advertisements so much on news, and I'm not talking about commercial breaks. Okay? But, I'm signed up for a few newsletters, one of them's for KMOV, one of our local news stations, right? And I don't get any news in the email. I never get any news in email. What I do get from KMOV4 is advertisements, right? They send me advertisement emails to this business or that business. Now, that seems, they've been doing it for quite some time, but, it didn't used to be that way. They didn't used to be all about money. I guess maybe that's one of my issues with Alex, too. You can't go watch Alex Jones for 15 minutes without hearing about 8 minutes of commercial. Okay? It's crazy, folks. It's crazy. We don't even mention every day about our Amazon link. It's not the focus. Again, not judging the others. It comes down to morals. It comes down to focus and intent. And, we want to be here for you. And we want to be here to get out truth. We want to get out as much help and knowledge and information as what we can. It's what we do. What we stand for. So please try to hold these people to task. Okay? Go to these different news organizations. The link is in the description of that video that I put out earlier. Feel free to use it. Well, it's not our link, but go to your different news outlets and post that and ask them, why are you not talking about this documentary that he was getting ready to start? Because that's huge. That is huge. Let me have a sip of coffee here. I haven't even had a sip of coffee. I went and poured her coffee while the intro video was going, and I've been dying for our afternoon coffee. I'm telling you. I am telling you. It's crazy. It really is. There's a few things that, like Alex has done, that, different sayings, catchphrases, and stuff like that is so awesome. Like the war on for your mind, I believe, is one of them. And it's true. It is true. There is an absolute all-out assault on your minds. And it's being done by, media, meaning you turn on your television set. It's being done on social media. And some of that is in some of the news stories that I'll be covering today. They are doing so much to slant people the direction that they want. I put up on Facebook earlier, I found out today that we're going to be getting a Chick-fil-A here in Highland. And I thought, I've heard that it's good. I don't know, never had it. There's a lot of places I haven't had. And anyway, the way, sorry, I'm getting jumbled up. The way I saw it or even heard about it was somebody was throwing a fit because we were getting a Chick-fil-A and all their political views and their identity politics, and I could give a damn less about that. Do you make a good chicken sandwich? Because that's what I care about, right? I don't need to hold you. Are you killing people? No, you're not killing people. Oh, so you have an opinion. Well, good. We should all have opinions. What we should not do is force those opinions on others. Okay? I don't have a problem with homosexual people. I don't. My only issue arises when they, one, try to say that the Bible says it's okay. I've got an issue with that because the Bible clearly states that it's not. Period. So make your choice. Either you're going to walk with God, you're going to walk with Jesus, you're going to walk with the Word, or you're not. Pretty simple. Don't try to change it. Don't try to pervert it. Right? Same with the Constitution. Either you walk with the Constitution or you don't. Don't try to change it. Don't try to pervert it. I won't say don't try to change it, but like you've got your first 10 amendments that shouldn't be touched. Okay, and that's the way the forefathers intended it, was those first 10 amendments were not to be touched. At all. Like, as in, shall not be infringed, right? So again, it's not that I have problems with homosexuality. I don't care. It's none of my business. Whether Bobby and Jack are sleeping together is none of my business. I don't care. Right? When it comes to when it's made my business because they want to do it in my home, that might be a little different. Okay? Because here we follow God. Pretty simple. Right? When they want to try to indoctrinate children with this stuff, I've got a problem. Just the way it is. And I realize that's an opinion too. I get that. Right? But my opinion is not derailing society. The fact that what you do in your own home, behind closed doors, is your business, is not derailing society. Now, if I were to go out there amongst society, screaming at the top of my lungs, Bob, Jack, don't sleep together, you're going to hell, then there would be a problem. Right? It's not my job to do that. It's not your job to do that. It's nobody's job to do that. Let Jack and Bob decide for themselves whether they want to sleep together or they want to be with Susie and Jane. It's up to them. It's up to them. But anyway, that's how I found out, was somebody throwing a fit because, the whole, the drill with Chick-fil-A. I mean, I hear they make a good chicken sandwich. I want to try it. We got a Burger King a few months ago. God, it's awesome. I like Burger King, and we've ate there twice, right, babe? Twice. Awesome. We live in a small town. We don't get anything new very often. So, in the past year, we've gotten a Burger King. There's some chicken place, not Chick-fil-A. It's a different chicken place. I don't remember the name of it. And then we got a third one. I can't remember what other kind of place we got. Do you? And we got a third restaurant. I don't remember. But now we're getting a Chick-fil-A, and I can't wait to try it. It's probably going to be interesting when it opens up. There's probably going to be a ton of people protesting it and all that. So I'm just guessing. I have no idea. But back to what I was getting at. We need to do what's important, right? We need to do what's important. I would say being able to cure a formerly incurable disease is important, right? Why isn't mainstream news talking about this? We need to hold news media, both mainstream and alternative, to task. Okay, how many times have I heard that Hillary's going to jail? Hillary's going to jail. I guarantee you I've heard that over 100 times, and it's been a bullshit lie every single time. And I hope she does. Don't get me wrong. I'm in the camp that I hope they lock her out. I hope they black bag and Gitmo her ass. Okay? Right before we see her swinging from a lamppost. Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. But there needs to be a whole line of them along with her. And it's not because she's against Trump either. I've been saying this. I've been saying this for a very long time. Much longer than, Trump even thinking about running for president. I don't pick a political side. There's right and there's wrong. That's all I need. I don't need any other type of identity politics or anything like that to know right from wrong. It's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry. Anyway, please hold them to task. Your local news media, anybody you can, especially on social media, hold them to task about this with Nipsey Hussle. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I heard the name and I heard Nipsey Hussle, I'm going to be honest with you. I laughed. The guy that does his very best not to have judgment like that, I laughed. Okay, the name, Nipsey Hussle. Okay, it's funny. In my opinion, it's funny, right? But I didn't look more into it at that particular time. And it's a shame that I didn't. And I just happened to run across something that was talking about him getting ready to do this documentary about this doctor and this doctor curing AIDS and won a Supreme Court case. And I'm like, whoa, that's a big deal. And that's when I dug and found out about the 70 patients that proved to the Supreme Court that he had cured their AIDS. And the saddest thing in the world is I'm hearing about that now. What was that, 2016? He won that Supreme Court case, I think. It's now 3 years later, and the only reason why I even know about it is because a rapper got killed. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Sometimes even the awoke need to wake up. I'm guilty as any other with that. Anyway, another sip of coffee and I'll get to the headlines for you. Man, good stuff. Okay, bear with me. I don't even have Twitter up. Which means I gotta bring it up and scroll 5 miles. There's quite a few headlines today. A lot of stuff over the weekend. Oh, come on. You know you wanna. I normally have this all scrolled ready to go. Yeah, there were more rocket sirens in southern Israel. That was yesterday. Court blocked another Trump attempt to undermine Obamacare. That was yesterday. Saturday, man receives 20-year prison sentence for swatting call that led to the death of another man. That was the Andrew Finch case. And as you know, I'm sure Prepper Nurse 1 has talked about it during his live stream last night. And in the video the day before, he talked about him being swatted. I knew about it that night, as you know if you watched his video or watched his live stream. I knew about it that night, and I just couldn't. I couldn't say. Of course, Jen knew about it. Anything I know, Jen knows, and I let Evil know. I told Evil about it, but that was it. Other than that, I was completely hush about it, because I was asked to be. And so you know about it, and this is insane that this stuff is going on. It needs to stop. People are dying as a result of this immaturity. It's absolutely a shame. Okay, also Saturday I put out Russia land-based U.S. threat to impose sanctions over Venezuela. Also Saturday, Yellow Vest call for new protest in Paris. There were at least 5 killed in factory explosion in eastern China. Okay, now let me go ahead and scroll up. Let me make sure that wasn't something late Friday night. Oh, I think actually it was. Police chief and friend charged with raping child over 7-year period. Let me say that again. Police chief and his friend were charged with raping a child over a 7-year period. We really, really, really have to rethink this whole idea of authority. Okay? As I've said a million times on the show, you know who my authority is? God. There is no one in between. God is my authority. Period. There's no one in between. Not a member of clergy. Not a person in a uniform with a shiny piece of metal on their chest. Not any teacher. Nobody. God is my authority. That is my only authority. I can choose whether I want to do right or wrong, and I can choose what it is that I deem right or wrong, and you can too. You don't need somebody else as a middleman. Right? You just don't. That's begging for problems. Okay? I hate to say it because it's been said a zillion times, but, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think that's how it's said. Let's see. Proposed red flag bill in Colorado aims to take guns away from people who are deemed a threat. Let's see. U.S. man faces up to 10 years in prison for stealing rail tracks from Auschwitz death camp. Wasn't me. Maduro announces 30-day power rationing as Venezuela is gripped by blackouts. New Big Brother, ? India's Project Insight in full force searches social media for unpaid taxes. Right? What country do you think that sounds like? Collective punishment. Zuckerberg's call for internet regulation is aimed at competitors. You never want regulation, folks. You don't. What you want is individual liberty. Okay? The more individual liberty you have, believe it or not, the more right others will act. Okay? You know, if you have two children in school and one child's bullying another child, today, with all these quote-unquote anti-bullying laws, what happens is when the bullied child winds up having enough, having their fill of it, and dots the bully in the eye, the bullied child is the one that usually gets in the trouble. Right? I know, I've been there. I've been there myself. That crap started right while I was finishing up in high school. Been there, done that. Okay? If you wouldn't have all these, you know, what's the mandatory things, policies, procedures, you know, and your school representative, whether it be principal, teacher, or whatever, sits down with Billy and Johnny, you know, finds out that Billy probably already knows that Billy's been tormenting Johnny for 3 years. Johnny got tired, Johnny got pissed off, and dotted Billy in the eye. Anybody with any decency would be looking at Billy and said, you know what, you got what you deserved. You got what you deserved. Now that teaches a lesson. That absolutely teaches a lesson. That teaches the lesson of right and wrong. Okay? You may not always get caught when you do wrong, but when you do, you should be punished for it in a manner that teaches you a lesson. You think suspending a student from school, putting the student out of school for 3 days or something like that, do you really think that that's going to do anything? Right. That's the equivalent of a police officer, you know, shooting somebody 21 times, an unarmed person 21 times, and then give him paid leave off. What the hell is that? What's that all about? You know? While you and I, if anything, we wouldn't get paid leave. Absolutely ridiculous. You don't want laws. You want individual liberty. Because then you can obtain something that's more along the lines of common law, which is what you want. Okay, there has to be rules for things to be civilized. Okay? But, come on, most of us know the difference between right and wrong. And if you were able to approach those that did wrong in the manner that they deserve to be approached, they would think twice before doing wrong again. But the way the system is set up right now, they're not getting taught. People doing wrong are not getting taught anything. Look at child molesters. They get caught. They go to jail for a little while, and many times it's a little while. And they get out and they do it all over again. Right? Let the families of that molested child deal with that child molester, and I'll bet you there's a 90% chance that it never happened again. Point blank. We need back more control of our own lives. Russian shipments of LNG to Europe and Asia leave the United States well behind. Game changer, China's yuan bonds to reshape global capital markets, which those two articles right there should be a bit of a wake-up call as to what's going on globally in the financial world. Disgusting and offensive, anti-vaxxers under fire for use of Holocaust symbols at protests. Venezuela is most open U.S. coup, pundit tells RT as Wall Street Journal talks, getting Russia out of Caracas. Hundreds of women secretly filmed undressing for treatment at San Diego hospital. How do you like that? Right? A hospital. India launches top secret spy satellite into orbit along with CubeSat swarm. Your resignation would do perfectly. Social media backlash to Prime Minister May's knife crime proposals. Right? They take their guns away. Now they're trying to take knives away. It's ridiculous. Aren't they figuring this out yet? And it's just going to get more brutal, folks. Okay, you take knives away, it's going to go to baseball bats. You take baseball bats, who knows? There's going to be wooden spoons from the kitchen. You know, people will find a way to kill one another. You know, the first murder was done with a rock. How you going to ban rocks? Let's see. Widespread economic slowdown across Europe, with Italy heading to zero growth, says the economy minister. Terrifying video shows tornado tearing through fairground in China, killing 2 children. In China, tornado. System failure, thousands of passengers stranded as software glitch grounds flights across the U.S. Twitter reinstates anti-abortion movie account after sparking outrage with unexplained suspension. That's what I was talking about earlier. With man, this social media thing is getting to be ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, I fully understand that they have a right to allow or disallow anything they want on their platform. The First Amendment does not apply to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. It's a private entity, and I respect that. I do. I think it's a bunch of horse hockey, right? But it is what it is. If the government wouldn't be so in bed with these social media companies, we would be able to allow other social media companies to be able to rise. Okay, but these other social media companies are being suppressed. Just the way it works. We need to change that. That's up to you and I. All of this, our future is up to you and I. It's not up to some guy that gets voted into office. Oh no, that's a fairy tale that you've been told. No, it's up to us, because you can't expect that those people are going to do what it is that we the people want to do. Right? Look at what they've not done for years, what we the people want. Okay? So it falls on us. You know, it's simple. We just have to get off our butts and make it happen. That's all. Look at France, right? You don't think Macron is concerned? You'd be foolish not to think that Macron is concerned. Okay? What about this stuff with the Brexit? You think the UK is concerned? The UK government? I bet they are. Right? They don't even know what to do with this whole Brexit thing. Right? Because the people took back control. Look at what happened in Iceland. Oh, that's right. You don't hear about Iceland. Why? Because the people of Iceland did the exact opposite of what we're doing. Okay? They took back control. They kicked all the banks out. All the crooked banks. Right? They kicked out all the crooked politicians. Right? And they're trying to rebuild their country. That's why you don't hear about it. They don't want you to get any ideas. A Russian aluminum giant Rusal resumes supplies to U.S. and Europe. More tears? ? Johnson & Johnson. Wow, I'm like slurring. Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo samples fail India's quality test. That's not good. How does this serve U.S. interest? ? Gabbard slams decision to sell Saudi Arabia nuclear weapons technology. Yeah, I've got an issue with that too. 30 firefighters and volunteers die from fighting forest fire in China. Catholic priest, right? We've been hearing Luke Radowski of We Are Change has talked about, what's going on with social media's modern day book burning, and I agree. It is absolute modern day book burning. Well, we've actually got book burning going on again. Catholic priest in Poland torch Harry Potter books to denounce magic. Right? So now are we going to hear about wild claims, people walking down the street with their hair on fire and burn them at the stake? Is that next? Really? Shouldn't a Catholic priest be worrying about keeping their hands off of little kids? That would be nice, please. You know, why are you bothering books? Russiagate endgame ? Democrats to issue subpoena for full unredacted Mueller report. Son of MI6 chief killed, and it says quote unquote, I don't know why, killed in car crash in Scotland. MSNBC's Maddow keeps spinning Russian collusion hysteria even as her own network corrects her. I mean, these people are mental. You know me, I don't support, when I say I don't support Trump, I don't mean I don't like anything that he does. And at the same time, I'm not telling you I like everything that he does. There's good and bad. I don't have to choose, you know, he does good and bad. Commend him for the good, shun him for the bad. It's pretty simple logic, okay? Pretty simple logic. This whole collusion thing was a joke, and I've been saying that from the beginning. But what's proof to you that they're working together is the things that Trump was not called out on. No, there's a slew of things that Trump's not called out. If the left wanted to hurt Trump right now, they would call him out on gun control, his support of gun control. Right? Because that's supposed to be huge with Red Team. Right? They're working together. One creates a nanny state, the left, and the right creates the police state. Okay? In order to have a nanny state, you have to have a police state. You got to have both. You can't have one or the other. You have to have both. And they both have to be equally as powerful. Think about it. Nothing but a sham. U.S. halts F-35 equipment shipments to Turkey over Ankar's plans to buy Russian S-400s. And watch Russian special forces take hallucination-inducing shield into action. Yes, that shield that you see in that image, apparently with the way that the lights on that strobe, it can actually cause you to have hallucinations. That's pretty messed up. That's pretty messed up. Think about that. Wow. It'd be a nice tool to have, wouldn't it? Anyway, let me go ahead and close up the monologue. I'm done through the news articles here, and I'm ready to get going on videos and all that good stuff. So, it's a Monday. What can I say? Let's see. For those here for the live show, stick around. Don't go anywhere. Don't click off. Don't do anything. This is just how I close up the monologue every day. It goes out separately some days. I don't always get it out. I plan on getting this one out. So don't do anything. Go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. For those that just watch the monologue or the recording thereof, thank you very much. As always, God bless you. We love you, and be one with your spirit. All right, let me get this closed here, get this out of the way, and of course I don't have, well, Prepper Nurse came out with his video, so let's just roll right into that. Don't even know what it is here. Okay, Prepper Nurse 1, his video is titled, How Bad Are Things Really in the Midwest from the Flooding?
Hey everybody, Prepper Nurse 1 here. April 1st, 2019, April Fool's Day. So I was talking in my live chat last night, and I wanted to do a follow-up about the devastation that's continuing to go on in the Midwest. Okay, so I got some information that I wrote down, so I didn't want to. Now this is just some of the information, guys. I'm not even going to give you all of it, but I'm just going to give you an idea of how truly bad the situation is. I'm not going to turn that way because I'll be blinded by the sun. It's actually about 36 degrees here today at the homestead. We actually had snow on the ground this morning because it snowed last night. So, but that melted off pretty quickly once the sun came out, so that wasn't too bad. But definitely a chilly day. The rest of the week is actually looking better. But we're getting good power in on the solar panels today, so I can't complain at all. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, a couple different things, okay? Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about, which I think is really, really important. So in the United States, about 13 million people use wells for their water. I'm one of them. I have my own well, and we use that for drinking, washing, and cooking. Okay, so in the Midwest, where all this flooding and everything has gone on, over 1 million wells are going to be affected from this flooding, and it's going to be if I can pull this up here. It's basically you're looking at. I just want to find this information, what I wanted to say here. So basically the flooding is going to be causing a lot of E. coli and also other contaminants, pollutants from industrial waste and stuff like that. You're talking the E. coli is going to be from waste treatment plants and stuff like that. That's all going to get into these wells. And so these wells, you're talking about 1 million wells in this area that are going to have to be cleaned out, retested, after the flooding stops to make sure that they're okay to be able to have that as drinking water again. So think about that, just the cost of that alone. So let's just think about that for a minute, okay? So anyway, you're talking about the flooding is essentially is 300 counties across 10 states. And I'm going to read off these 10 states so you kind of get an idea. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Okay, and the two states that actually have been hit the worst are Iowa and Nebraska. All right. Now the other thing that a lot of people aren't thinking about is 13% of the ethanol production right now is offline because of the flooding. So I wanted to talk a little bit. Let's see. So one of the things that really truly need to be addressed right now, in my opinion, okay, you have at least 62 levees that have been breached or overtopped because of the flooding. So you're having issues, obviously, with all these different levees. I think they were saying it's like 350 miles of levees that are affected, okay? So you're talking about a tremendous amount of an area that's basically right now a Swiss cheese thing. And so what happens when more flooding and more rain is predicted right now in that area? So they're going to have more issues in that area because of the flooding. So, you know, it's not going to get better. It's going to only get worse. They're saying that the flooding can continue through the rest of the spring, that a lot of these people are not going to be able to get their crops planted and stuff like that. So one of the things I did want to... So basically, in my opinion, one of the things that really, truly needs to be addressed when this all settles out is these levees. And they need to get... Safety is going to be a huge thing because it affects not only, you know, all the people, but their farmland, their livelihood. And that food, guys, feeds this country. That food, you know, the corn production and stuff like that, that is, you know, for ethanol production and, again, for grain, for cows, and all that type of stuff. So I wanted to address a couple of different things here. So we're going to talk about Nebraska for a second. We're just going to talk about that, just that one state, okay? It's the third largest producer of corn in the country. It's the second largest in ethanol. It's the second largest in cow and calf production. And it's the first for cattle on feed. So right now, and it's like they're saying that they're estimated $400 million of losses just from cattle alone in Nebraska. And so, I mean, that's crazy. There was one farm, okay, here's another example. One farm alone lost 700 hogs that were drowned due to the flooding in Nebraska. Now, there's another thing in Iowa. There's an area that has 6 facilities that hold 3,000 pigs each, and they haven't even been able to get in there to check on them to see if those pigs are alive. So think about that number of pigs alone in that one facility where they have 6 different buildings that are holding that, okay? They're basically saying that 75 to 80% of the stored crops have been destroyed by the flooding in like Iowa and Nebraska. I mean, we're talking crazy, crazy numbers, guys. And I didn't really get into all the numbers as far as you know, the amount of livestock that has been lost. Okay, I didn't even get into all of that because it's so much. So we're talking, you know, cows, pigs, you know, chickens, other livestock that people have. So you have the loss of life from that. So we're talking, I think they said in Iowa alone, they're estimating the losses at $1.6 billion for everything. You know, destroyed cropland. They might not even get crops in the ground this year. And that does affect the entire country, guys. So you're talking about a 10-state area to one degree or another is definitely going to be affected from this flooding. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars just to fix these levees alone, you know, to get them squared away. And, you know, that needs to be a priority because the Midwest, guys, they don't call it the grain basket for nothing. This is where the majority of our food production, you know, the last time that I looked, I think they said that it was like 38% of the food production, you know, is in that area, you know, of the country that is being affected. So that's a pretty significant amount, you know, of food that's being affected. And again, the loss of livestock. So now we have all this livestock that are dead, that are rotting in this water, which again, that's going to affect these different wells and stuff like that too. I mean, it's just it's a very, very devastating situation, and I just didn't want to make one video on it and then basically move on and forget it and go to the latest and greatest thing, because this is something that's going to have long-reaching effects. First of all, they're saying that almost half of the farmers may not even be able to recover from this one. So, you know, that alone is pretty devastating. It's pretty. Think about these families. I mean, this is their livelihood. And, you know, yeah, okay, so they farm on a floodplain, but it's the best place to do these things. But they are relying on protection, you know, and we're having, obviously, record storms and the crazy weather, and so that obviously affects everything as well. And, of course, they're going to call it, you know, it used to be global warming, now it's climate change, because I had to change the word because things are getting colder, not warmer. But these storms and stuff like that, guys, it's getting crazy. And it's going to affect prices of everything across the board. So you really need to be paying attention to that. I mean, again, when I talked in the first video I did on this topic, I said, you know, now is the time to load up on food. I mean, and I meant it because it's like, very scary stuff, guys. Really, really scary stuff. And it's definitely something that's going to be affecting the country for a while. You know, they're talking that it's going to affect things into next year because, like, now a lot of them aren't even going to be able to get crops in the ground this year. You know, and again, let's say we have an overly wet spring. Well, you've already got a ground that is completely saturated out there that really can't hold any more water. Where's that water going to go? So, you know, you're talking about a lot of devastation. And like I said, my heart goes out to them. I did see something that was really, you know, heartwarming. There was a caravan headed out that way from one of the other states, and I can't remember which one it was, to be honest with you, where they were, you know, bringing in hay and supplies and fencing and stuff like that to help these guys out. But now I want to talk about, too, it's like in this area, you're talking about, you know, all these roads that are covered have been damaged, all these bridges that have been damaged. So you're talking about a huge area of the country that has to basically rebuild everything. And so, I mean, again, you know, I've talked about this stuff, and I really think it's important. And this is a great example of why infrastructure of our country, guys. That's what we need to be focusing on. The amount of jobs that can be created would be great. And again, people working hard, making a decent living, they're going to put that money back into the economy, and it's going to be a win-win situation. You make your country safe, which we need to do. We need to make sure that these farmlands are going to be safe, and I don't care if we have to make these levees twice the height. I don't care how much it would cost. It needs to be addressed, and it needs to be taken care of, because when you're talking about a part of the country that produces so much food for the country, you know, and also cows and pigs and chickens and everything else, you know, you're talking about it's a very, very decimating, you know, situation that's going to impact everybody. You know, it's going to impact everybody across the country, and I think a lot of people, because they go with the mindset of out of sight, out of mind, so you know they don't want to, you know, think about the fact, you know, that these things are going on. But very, very scary stuff. I definitely want to hear your guys' feedback. I want to hear what you have to say about this. because I think, like I said, this is a situation that is going to have long-reaching effects. It's going to affect these farmers, that's for sure. I had heard different things that some of these insurance companies weren't wanting to pay. You know, of course they don't want to pay. You know, that's a standard thing with insurance companies. They'll take your money for sure, but then they don't want to pay you out in the end. But hopefully that gets worked out. These farmers get the relief that they need to be able to rebuild if that's what they want to do. But if they're going to rebuild, guys, we need to make sure that these areas are safe for them to have their farms so they can produce the crops and produce the livestock that we need that feed us across the country. You know, so like I said, it's like, you know, when the situation with the wells, that kind of struck home because I have a well. So, you know, that's how we get our water, you know, so that's it's definitely something that is going to affect a lot of different things. So very, very sad situation, very, very scary situation of how fragile the system really truly is. And you know, heaven forbid the next disaster that comes up, you know, and people like lose sight of what's happening out in the Midwest right now. You know, when you're talking about something that's affecting 10 different states, and obviously Iowa and Nebraska are getting hit the worst. And you know, it's just it's tough, guys. It's tough to swallow, you know. But I wanted to keep it in the forefront. I wanted to bring it up again. And like I said, I talked a little bit about it yesterday in my live chat. But I mean, I didn't even get into all the livestock losses. I mean, the livestock losses, you know, are just incredible. And again, those animals that, you know, they're all now dead. And like, let's say those 6 facilities with 3,000 pigs in each one, you're talking about 18,000 pigs. Let's say they're all gone because there's nobody there feeding them. There's nobody there to check and see what's going on. So now you've got these dead animals rotting in the water. You know, what's going on with all of that? So, you know, that's putting a lot of pollutants in the water and stuff like that as well. So it's just a crazy, crazy situation. You know, and it's you know, very, very sad, to be honest with you. So I wanted to bring it up because I think it's important. I think we need to keep it in the forefront. We need to prepare accordingly, you know, for that. Grains, I mean, the price of corn and all that type of stuff, it's all going to go up. Your wheat, all that type of stuff, all that's going to go up in price, okay? You're talking soybeans is another one that's a big producer out in that area. So there's a lot of stuff, guys, that are going to be more expensive, and you need to think about that. And like I said, with the ethanol production, like right now, 13% of the ethanol production in this country is offline. That is going to affect things. Again, recently, and I just talked about this, the gas prices have jumped up 15 cents a gallon probably in the last 2 weeks here in New York, where I'm at. And so, you know, that's something to think about. You know, everything is going to cost more, and it continues to happen like that. Nothing is going to change as far as that goes. So please be safe. To all my fellow brothers and sisters out there in the Midwest that are dealing with this right now, I want you to know you're in my thoughts, and you know, I hope things work out, and I hope you get the support that you need, and I hope these insurance companies do what they're supposed to do to take care of this situation. So. You know, hang in there, guys, and that's all we can do. And hopefully, you know, you guys can recover from this and, you know, and go from there. So, anyway, I guess that's going to be it for right now. I wanted to, you know, like I said, I just wanted to bring this up. I thought it was important, and so that is that. So, anyway, I'm going to cut this video off because the time is running on here quite a bit. But I wanted to share this information with you guys because I think it's important. Remember, guys, we are all in this together. It's important to remember, and so what happens in one area definitely affects other people. Remember also, hug and kiss the ones you love. Tell them every single day. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. We never know what's going to happen. And remember, guys, STD. It's one step at a time, one thing at a time, and one day at a time. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you can do it. The only one that's going to stop you from doing it is yourself. The only one that's going to stop you is you. So stay focused, stay positive. Don't listen to the negativity, and you should be great, okay? I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Prepper Nurse 1, out for now.
Alrighty, let's see. Got one here from Step 1 Survival that sounds very interesting, the title of it. And yeah, we're going to go with it next. Again, the channel Step 1 Survival, and the video is titled, Things I Try Not to Think About. How Can I Forget Something Disturbing?
Alright, welcome back to SOS. I'm Stat Sergeant Badass. And today, these are things I try not to think about. Alright. This is a video log. I'm doing this. I don't care if anybody likes it or not. I don't. I'm just making this as a video log because it's been a while since I've logged anything, as far as, I guess, this goes into the fragile sense of being a man. You know, we all got to be tough men, make our chest bounce and punch each other in the face, right? So, yes, you know, we deal with stuff. We all deal with stuff, and I deal with something every single year. I try not to think about this, and every single time it goes back to this. Every single time, you know, it's always something that gets under my, I don't know. Last night I had trouble sleeping. It was really bad, and you know, lately I've had a lot of trouble sleeping, and it's been horrible. I had some crazy dreams, and you know, I always go back to these crazy dreams, and some of you might be able to relate to this. I don't know. You can comment below, but you know, back when my parents might be watching this, I don't care. But you know, back when they used to fight a lot, you know, there was always something going on. And I remember having these dreams as a kid about wolves. Yes, I said it, wolves. Whoop-de-doo. All right, someone's gonna get offended. He said wolves. So had these dreams, you know, that there were, you know, this goes back to something very important, you know, feeling like broken goods. You know, I wrote down, I keep a log of stuff. There was the other one that I wrote down. Having a purpose. Having a purpose is the other thing that I wrote down. Having a purpose. And when you're a child, you go through all kinds of, you know, crazy stuff, and, you know, the experiences are a little bit different, and, you know, to have a dream, and then it features animals, and you wonder what, you know, when you get older, you're like, well, that was such an intense dream. What did all that mean? So you start looking into research of what do wolves mean when you see wolves in a dream, right? So this has nothing to do with prepping and survival, folks. This is just life stuff, man. But I was so curious, like what it meant to see wolves in a dream, and then you know, it was like as if at first in the dream I remember being terrified, and I remember these wolves being larger than life, just huge animals. They were big, you know, compared, you know, and going from that to seeing them smaller, and that all happened in the dream, and I always tried to figure out exactly what that meant. But I think it was like something was trying to tell me something. But, you know, the other night I had a dream, and it was crazy, and I like sharing these because there's other folks out there that have crazy dreams too. I had a dream about a tiger, and this tiger was larger than life. Most people don't know what the tiger means. Top predator, right? Top predator, enforcer, things like that. When you see the thing, it also goes with the yin and the yang and stuff. I knew a bunch of Marines that had the tiger tattoo. It was one of those things. That's the reason why I have a tiger tattoo. So most people always wonder about the tiger tattoo thing that I have. But going into that, I get to thinking about broken goods myself, right? You know, I've several years in the Marine Corps, and then, you know, to leave with injuries and finding a purpose, and then being in situations where you were near death. And, you know, I've been in a couple of situations where I was near death, and, you know, from youth to adult, and in a near-death experience, the aftermath of those, you start to get this hyper-awareness, and you start looking at things differently. If something happens to you so severe, and a lot of folks always like to do the whole, oh, that's PTSD, bro, and blah, blah. It could be, it could be. The thing is that, the hyper-awareness stuff where it's like, it can consume you if you get hyper-aware, and this is going to fall for some of you guys and gals out there that end up in an SHTF scenario where you get hyper-aware, and you won't know what any of that stuff means. You'll just, because, it'll be new to you probably. It probably never happened to you, and it'll be a new experience. But when it happens, you look at things differently. You can either let it overwhelm you and it becomes huge amounts of fear. If it overwhelms you, then it just becomes huge amounts of fear, and then you're afraid to do anything. Or you can use it to your advantage and get a hyper sense of awareness and look at things a little bit more hardcore. Reading people and stuff like that, and things going on around you, it could work to your advantage to help save your life if you're in a situation where you're having to watch other people more often. So those heightened sense of awareness that happens from having a purpose. Anytime something bad happens to an individual, this goes back, like I said, every year I go through this thing, because I've lost so many friends, and 3 of those were suicide related. 3 of those were suicide. All 3 of them service members, and going back to those, one I had a phone call with the day before he shot himself. So the day before he shot himself, I was actually on the phone with him. So I still live with this, did I say something? Did I help him or not? Did I not see the signs? So I'm always tearing myself up with that. Whatever happened from that, I will never know. NCIS, people get involved, and they do they get to look through the scene search and stuff like that, and they come back with nothing, right? So, and as far as anyone can say, it's like this is all that happened, and they have no other evidence. So then you're left with that. One hung themselves on my 30th birthday. My 30th birthday. I walked in on it. I walked into a hanging body, and I can't get the image out of my head from that. It's a friend, someone I knew, someone I rode around with, drank beers with, and pizza, and even did a few, heck, we even went to a Kenny Chesney concert together. So going back to that, there you go, wrap your mind around that. There's just so much, so much, and sometimes I stop, I pray, and I think to myself, the things happen for a reason, that maybe I was supposed to be exposed to the things that I was exposed to over time, over life, in general, and that maybe I was supposed to see these sorts of things. Maybe that's, it was something more severe is going to happen, and I have to be able to face something worse than that. That's another fear. That's another fear that I live with. Like, what could be worse than that, right? So you get to thinking about these things. But look, I'm a tough guy. But every now and then I have to think back. The whole, what do I do? What do I do now? And I try not to think about these things that I guess just affect what I do, because I try to keep my mind busy. That's the whole point of making videos every day, is I try to keep myself busy. If it's like leather work, I'm doing leather work to keep myself busy, keep my mind occupied. And that was another thing that I've learned and trained myself over the years, is for all of you out there that have something that's eating at you or whatever, you have to stop and find something else to focus on. Because if you, even though that's there and the flash or hint of that comes in every now and then as a reminder, you know, then you've got to have something there to occupy your mind and keep yourself busy. So you try not to think about these things. But these are things that I try not to think about, and I just wanted to do this video log because it's affecting me today, and that's why I'm making this video, is because it's affecting me today, and that's why I'm doing this video. Because on today's date, logbook entry, this is what's affecting me today. You watch SOS. I'm Staff Sergeant Badass. Have a beautiful, fabulous, fantastic day. Rainbows, unicorns, big explosion. God bless. Take care.
Alrighty, let me back up here. Should already had that down. I know. Let's see. Oh, looks like some good stuff today. Okay, I am going to, let me play this video, and the reason I want to play this video is you all know that we have electric bikes, and this is the most affordable electric bike that I've seen, aside from building your own. And I'll tell you what, if this thing comes with a battery for this price, buying the bike is almost the cost of a battery. I mean, I built my own battery. On my bike, I have a Li-ion battery, 48 volt, somewhere around, I would say around 18,000 mAh, milliamp hour. Jen has lead acid batteries. She's got 4 12-volt lead acid batteries in her bike, which they're 20 amp hour batteries. So here I was going all milliamp hour. Jen's got 20 amp hours worth of battery, lead acid. I've got 18 amp hours roughly of battery using Li-ion. I built that battery out of used discarded laptop batteries. I pulled all the 18650 cells out of them. I bought a balancing board and put it all together myself. So, you know, if I were even to buy the cells, the batteries, to do that, it would probably cost me probably about $150, because there's 117 cells in that battery that I built on my bike. So yeah, there's a little expense. If you go out and buy a bicycle battery for an electric bike itself, they're usually around between $400 or $500 starting. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys this if it's a direction you want to go, but you don't want to build your own. Again, I don't know if the battery comes with this. We'll find out, I assume. This is from the channel ebikeschool.com. Great information there if you're into electric vehicles, whether they be skateboards, scooters, bicycles. Great information on that channel. I couldn't recommend them more. And he does sell stuff. He does have a website that he sells stuff. But if you want to build your own bicycle, get with me. Don't you know, yeah. I'm not putting him down, but the stuff, I'm going to be honest with you, is way overpriced on his site. So the motor kits and stuff are way overpriced. Get with me. I'll show you. I think around $150 roughly. You can get the front. It's a front wheel hub motor, like what we have. It comes with the motor controller, the front hub motor, which comes with a tire and a tube and the whole 9 yards. And then you know, your throttle. I said motor controller. It comes with everything but the battery, and and something called torque arms, which you have to have. But you can get it for around $150, maybe $160, but I think they're still under $150. And you know, you won't find them a lot of places, especially the electric bike websites and stuff. You won't find them close to that price. They'll be way, way higher. Anyway, he's got a video titled New $599, and I don't even begin to know how to say this name, SHTUYOT, however that's pronounced. Electric bike goes 38 mile an hour. So essentially a $600 bike with the capability of 38 mile an hour, which is faster. That's about 10 miles faster than, 9 miles faster than what ours go. So pretty impressive, pretty impressive. Anyway, here's ebikeschool.com.
Hey guys, Micah here with ebikeschool.com, and today I am excited to present something that has been nearly a year in the making. Now, a while back, a team of engineers from Hong Kong contacted me and showed me an e-bike that they were in the early stages of developing. I was so impressed with the technology they had already developed for the bike that I joined the team and have been working with them over the past year to help finalize the bike and bring it to market. And what we've come up with now is the most revolutionary electric bicycle that exists on the market with some amazing specs. And we are proud to announce that today we are starting the Indiegogo campaign for the $599 Stuyot electric bicycle. Now, Stuyot translates roughly from Cantonese to something like black magic electric bicycle, and you guys are going to think this e-bike really has some black magic based on how good the specs are. Now, the first innovation we've put in this bike is the range. It has an amazing 100-mile or 160-kilometer range. Now, how have we been able to do that and still have just a $599 price? We used a new type of lithium-ion, which is known as lithium titanate, for the battery, and this is a much more energy-dense lithium-ion chemistry. It's also more affordable. It's not used that commonly yet because it's just come on the market, but it is a major step forward in lithium batteries, and we're excited to be one of the first e-bikes using it. Now, I know you're probably thinking 100-mile range, that's crazy, I don't believe that, but we knew that would be the case, and so we have included an unedited, full-length range test video of a 97-mile trip, and you can find a link to that video in the description below this video. The next innovation is the speed. Now, we know a lot of people want to be able to use their e-bikes on larger roads and be able to go faster and keep up with traffic, or still be able to go on smaller roads and bike lanes, so we've provided both options. The bike has a native top speed of 38 miles per hour. However, it comes limited right out of the box with a 15 mile per hour or 25 kilometer per hour speed limit. And it will be user modifiable. So if you want to keep the legal speed limit for most areas, you can leave it at 15 miles an hour, or you can cut a specific red wire and that will increase the speed to 28 miles per hour, or a specific black wire and that will increase the speed to 38 miles per hour. And we'll include a video showing you exactly which wire to cut. A lot of people don't want to have a kickstand on their bike because they don't want the extra weight, but they don't want to have to lean their bike up against a wall to park it every time either. So we've added a really cool innovation using a smartphone app that integrates what we call hover into the e-bike. You simply press the hover button on your smartphone app and your bike will hover about 6 to 18 inches off the ground, and that height is adjustable in the app. And what that means is that without a kickstand, you can pretty much balance your bike anywhere by just using the hover feature. Plus, we want to make sure that we integrated anti-theft into the bike itself. So using the smartphone app, again, you just come in here and you click a new button. This one is cloak. And now the bike will enter in active cloaking mode, where the bike is nearly invisible and it will be much less likely to be targeted by thieves. This really is a one-of-a-kind e-bike, so make sure you head over to the Indiegogo campaign to get your own Stuyot e-bike for $599 while supplies last. Thanks everyone, see you next time. Alright, so this is obviously just having a little fun on April Fools. This isn't really a Stuyot e-bike, this is a Gen Z 200 series e-bike, which is actually a pretty awesome e-bike in its own right. It doesn't have all the same features that the Stuyot bike had, but it's still a pretty cool bike. Thanks for watching, everybody. Last but not least, time to announce the winner of last week's book giveaway, and the winner is John Derry. So congratulations, John. Let me know which one of my books you'd like, either the Ultimate Do-It-Yourself E-Bike Guide, DIY Lithium Batteries, or DIY Solar Power. And anybody else can win one of my books just by putting a comment below, and hopefully you'll be the randomly selected commenter at the end of my next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.
That's just not even right, man. That that is not even cool. Let's see. Full range and test of the... I'm looking to see what that bike is. Oh. I've been rickrolled. I've been rickrolled. I was going to see what the actual cost of that bike was, but yeah, I got rickrolled. That ain't even right. That ain't even right at all. I guess I should be careful for that today, huh? I should have known better. Okay, Suspicious Observers has a video, their morning report titled Earthquake Surge, Sun Secret, and Deadly Tornado. Telling you, not right.
Good morning, folks. We've got a number of top stories to run down for you today, a must-watch video for newcomers, and a tease of the Catastrophe Cycle series finale. Let's begin at spaceweathernews.com and find the last day on our star very calm and quiet. No sunspots or solar flares, just a few of these coronal holes. Even the incoming umbral magnetic fields really have no flareable sunspots beneath them. Solar wind never intensified further after what we saw yesterday, hasn't dropped out much either, just sort of riding steady. Relatively calm in the magnetic field of Earth. Top story at the crust is a wild uptick in the North Indian Ocean. The islands where India and Indonesia meet have been rocking like crazy, and there's a strong Earth spot low on approach to them from the north. Top weather stories follow the cold and snow trying to make one last push into spring here. Meanwhile, tornado season has begun in China. Footage is impressive. Unfortunately, 2 children were lost when the bouncy house launched. Up first in the articles comes the pranksters. Fun April Fool's joke from the University of Toronto where scientists are suggesting FRBs are actually a version of the Death Star, destroying a planet. Have to admit, with the math and citations, they really did this up to look like a real paper. But the rest of these are real, and we begin way beneath our feet, finding major active areas deep in the lower mantle that allow for those 600-kilometer deep quakes to occur, especially beneath Fiji and Peru. Scientists studying extremely slow materials have found yet another way dark matter isn't interacting as expected. Again, the no-show and fail studies will continue to play out in the silliest sideshow of particle physics. Up next, an article on CMEs and coronal dimming. Some UV and visible energy scales up to X-rays in a solar flare. The particle blast stands between us and the sun as it's on its way to Earth, blocking out even more of the visible and UV. And these show up as a drop in visible and UV energy, but they are also showing up as a drop in solar energy to Earth's climate when these solar flares and CMEs are in fact 100, 1,000 to 100,000 times the energy to our planet. If you can understand that a major cataclysmic solar flare would not be a negative energy event for Earth, and if you can realize that we advocate for stronger restrictions, penalties, and retroactive cleanup provisions for polluters, please give this video of mine a shot, keeping in mind we hate pollution just as much as you do. Last but not least, I saw this when it hit the preprint archive days ago, but I sort of ignored it. And John McGovern suggested I take a closer look, and indeed, he's right. This is one of the final pieces of a puzzle detailing a secret of the sun. The paper is open source and complex, and the real kicker is that we're discovering that our sun has a 6th gear it doesn't use very often, but chooses to present sometimes in interesting ways. The last Catastrophe Cycle series video before the full compilation movie will detail the secret of the sun. Folks, we greatly appreciate your support. We've got wind maps and shots of our star to close, and we'll do this all again tomorrow, right here. But right now, it's 4:55 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Alrighty, got a video here from Pulse Change titled "There Already Is a Solution to Internet Censorship."
This is Rukadowski of WeAreChange.org right now in Sedona, Arizona, and a very beautiful place. We are here at the Anarcha Zona event, another kind of hippie anarchist event that's springing up and being copycatted all over the world. There's Anarcha Portugal, there's Anarcha Philadelphia, a lot of events springing up from, of course, Anarcha Poco, the original kind of event that brings together a large number of free thinkers, independent media, and people who just think outside the box looking for important solutions, like one of my friends, Ernie Hancock of Freedom Phoenix. He's been around in this movement for a very long time. You've been doing a lot of incredible work, pretty much about decentralization, pretty much about liberation of information and freeing people with, of course, solutions. And I think I'm going to do a new kind of video, kind of, how would you even call this? Like an interview where I just interview some of my really close friends and call it Problem, Reaction, Solution. Bring up to you 3 of those questions. What's the biggest problem? What's the reactions? What's the solutions to it? What can we all do together in some kind of new category, new playlist that I still haven't decided, but I like this idea. Ernie, what's one of the biggest problems out there that you think is that humanity is facing?
Knowing where the problem originates. We just had, right before we came out here, a woman that was one of the speakers from, I think she was from Kiev, and she said, is there a legal thing? Is there something I can tell my daughter? Is there one line? Is there a certain amendment? Is there something you can say to the man that he's going to leave you alone? Probably not, but it's us. Yeah, all the years I've been doing this, what I realized is that it's us. We're the problem. And we just keep thinking somebody's going to fix it, and they're not. Jeff Borwick, he gave a really good presentation today, and pretty much the same thing. It's us. We got to fix ourselves, and then we'll take care of business.
Exactly. I mean, people always look to externalize the problems, always to shift blame, always to say, it's not me you are, in a lot of ways. But again, the technological aspects, I think, are the most fascinating ones because they're developing so fast, and they do leave a lot of options for peace, a lot of options for total liberation, but also a lot of options for total domination and total control with the government knowing every aspect of what you're doing. You're working on a very similar project with James Corbett. You told me about this project. I'm also down to what you're doing. Give us kind of hints into this project that you're working on.
The main thing that I realized was that there was going to be... Should I be looking at the camera?
Doesn't matter. Just whatever feels comfortable.
The main thing that I realized is that they, them, those want to make sure, the ones who won't leave us alone, they want to make sure that you're not private. They want to know everything that you're saying to somebody for something, or you're a terrorist, okay? But then the other thing that we've seen over the last months has been they don't want you to be public either. They want you to be government propaganda approved. That's what they want you to be, because what's happened is all the stuff that you've done, James has done, James Corbett from the Corbett Report. We got Luke Rudkowski, We Are Changed, Richard Grove, Tragedy and Hope, Dan Dix, Press for Truth, Josh Segerson, John Simon from World Alternative Media, Derek Brose, the Conscientious Resistance. So, I mean, all of this is the internet, and Freedom's Phoenix and Pirates Without Borders all declare your independence and the stuff that we do. So I understood what the problem was. They want you to be, they know everything that you're saying, doing, and thinking, and they want to control you. Well, they want to control what you share with other people, and you sure as hell aren't allowed to influence what they're saying and thinking. So that's what has been the problem. They don't want you to be private, and they don't want you to be public and out there forever and always with the ideas that we have, the great interviews that Luke has done, the great videos that all these other guys have done. So what we did is we go, all right, we need to be able to have stuff that forever internet. Well, interplanetary file sharing, IPFS, everybody take a drink whenever I'm on the show. Oh, there he goes. Even Luke, he's like, oh no, here comes Ernie. He's going to say IPFS. So take your shot. Well, the reason is because when that came out, it was a few years ago, Derek Slopey from Agorist Hosting is our IT department, and he comes in, he says, Ernie, everything that you're talking about, this IPFS, I think it's going to be able to do it. And I wanted immutability of data. So I'm going, and I'm thinking of Luke and James and all these guys. where can we put their stuff that it's always available? Well, IPFS allows for that, but what I didn't know is that the same people that created that, to where you have nodes that have, we are putting it on full nodes with all of our information, and then as each one of us add, it syncs up. So you have a bunch of computers around the world that have the full list of all of us constantly being added to. Well, anybody else can join. You know, fans of Luke, the Corbetteers, subscribers to Freedom's Phoenix. We already have some people here. I got an old laptop, Raspberry Pi, $150 for 3 terabytes of storage now. So this is what's going to happen. We're going to become the internet. So, but it adds another thing. You can also have networks that you do with your families, so you can share photos. You don't have to be beholden to Facebook or the cloud of somebody's cloud, you know? So this is where we're going. We've already contacted some hacker spaces. We've put in some new tables and equipment that I have. I ordered a bunch of Raspberry Pis, got a bunch of old computers. We're rocking and rolling starting Monday, because we've already done it. Derek has done the stack, and we just finished this last week loading all of James Corbett on the IPFS.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be Luke.
Well, that's a lot of videos because, again, as we keep saying, the evolution will not be in your timeline. There's no reason these multinational monopoly technocratic corporations will want to give you information that goes against their, of course, monetary incentives. And, of course, a lot of things we do is pretty much teach you how to be independent, give you information that you won't get anywhere else, that is not controlled, that is not limited. And every day we have to live in fear that our channels are going to be completely deleted, because there's a number of us that already have been either completely deleted or de-incentivized with demonetization and algorithm changes that literally stomp out any form of possible existence as an independent journalist. You look around the field, there's less independent media than there ever was before. Why is that? Because it's incentivized not to think freely, independently. They're making it look out there that these ideas aren't popular, and they are. These ideas are extremely popular. That's why we've seen independent media grow as vastly as it did, and then the controllers, the social controllers, the technocrats are like, wait, hold on. They're talking about stuff that we don't want them to know. They're talking about stuff that is going to piss it off our government buddies. They're pissing off our corporate buddies. They're the ones bringing us all the money. They're taking away all the money. They're trying to tighten the noose here, and this is why I really like this idea, because it's decentralized. You're getting pretty much, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a bunch of servers out there so people could kind of have this information so it could never go away. That's the biggest fear, because right now,
it's a node.
Like, look what's happening in New Zealand. Right now, the government will fine you if you have, the videos of that horrendous event, or if you read the manifesto. There's so much, control going on that it's absolutely terrifying, because, obviously they have some justifications that the public is agreeing with New Zealand. But again, the kind of form of manipulation and control with the public is just, of course, layering, because it starts with just something that a public would justify, and then it keeps pushing and pushing and pushing until it's something that is, of course, questioning the reality of the state or the government.
Oh, this is on so many levels. This was, it started with Operation Choke Point a few years ago, where they closed bank accounts of porn stars, gun manufacturers, payday loan people. They always go for the low-hanging fruit, who they think they can get away with. And when they did that, I'm going, this is demonetization in every form. If you take the man's money, that's where crypto comes in. But it's more than that. It's we're going to have to be self-funding in the community, that we have to, and that's one reason why I wanted to do this, because Freedom's Phoenix has been 15 years, like 300-something thousand headlines, and it's a good chronology by category and so on. It's a great reference, and I wanted it for the future, saying, because you could see no matter what the hell they were trying to tell you was the truth, and news speak that they're coming up with, and the memory hole of this. We're living 1984, the jackboot on our face. So but I don't want to get mad. I want to get glad. So what we did is, I go, what they really want is they want only authorized speech. That's what's going on. And what Luke and James and Richard and Dan and and Sean and all this stuff that we're doing, and Derek, it has been amazing that they target exactly this type of message. And what it is it's what diminishes the state in our minds and the minds of other people, because they just suck. Well, they don't want that, and sure as hell not from people that do it really well.
Yeah.
So these are the first guys to get platformed, so it never goes away.
Yep.
Okay?
And you have to understand, they view this message, they view just this conversation as a serious threat. They started going after us before they went after the radical Islamists, before they went after the people who exploit and use children on the platform. And we're out there being like, hey, they're targeting us. Meanwhile, all these other crazy, insane people are using this platform, and they're perfectly fine with it. And then we had Apocalypse 1.0, 2.0, and this is going to continue on and on and on, again, until we start waking up. So in short, Ernie, problem, reaction, solution, what is it? Name those three, and tell us where people could find you.
You know, the problem, as far as what we're focusing on here, the problem has been you're not allowed to think or share your thoughts with others and, create an awareness or an enlightenment of what can be next. You're not allowed to even imagine it. That's the danger. Imagination.
Yeah.
Just imagining the difference. So I'm going, okay. The reaction to them is, for them is that to stop the freaking imagination. You don't have science fiction at the grocery store anymore. You're not allowed to think about these things. You're getting social justice warriors and all your favorite, movies and so on. You think this about that and not, being empowered as individuals that aren't, based on some identity politics and blah, blah, blah. So that's a reaction. And they're so reactive that you can see that we're over the target, so we're getting a lot of flack. And the solution is ignoring them. That's one thing I just drives me nuts. They're going, well, we got to get Zuckerberg and Facebook and Google under control of the government. We're going to pass a law, and they have to. And all the guys going, well, they got them. We're a public forum of they. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going, screw them. Now all you got to do is just bypass them, replace them, make them obsolete. And technology is there to do it. And that's what we're doing. We're using IPFS, and Filecoin was the same guys that did that, creating another software to be able to make proof of storage and dissemination of the data profitable. And I'm going, wow, that's cool, but we're not waiting because they got IPFS already. We're doing it. We'll put that other stuff on there later after we already got everybody platformed. Well, that's what we're working on right, not later.
Ernie, thank you so much. The link to your website will be in the description below, and just wanted to take a look at the nature here. Absolutely beautiful here in Sedona. Take a deep breath. There's a solution to the technocratic duopoly globalist monsters who want to control your imagination and what you think. I can't believe I would be saying that. We're here. It's all about waking up and understanding the solutions are right in front of us. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys are enjoying some of this nature. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.
Alrighty, got one here from Practical Prepping for the Ordinary Folks titled Motivation Monday. Yay!
Morning, YouTube. I apologize in advance for the weird lighting. It is early in the morning. The sunrise is peeking up. You can get a look at it. Sunrise is peeking up. And on my way into the office today, I had a thought about a comment I made last night on a video, and I wanted to get ideas and perspectives from other people. So the comment that I made was we'll start from the beginning. The exact comment was, the best prepper advice for today is to ask yourself if you're prepared to see your loved ones die, and then start preparing for those contingencies. And I guess I didn't appreciate it as much as I thought, because last night I was sitting in bed trying to fall asleep, and you have all those millions of thoughts that start rushing through, and you start processing everything from the day and from days, or in my case from ever, because that's just one of those things. In my profession, mine's going 24/7, and if it could go more than that, it would. So while I was laying in bed, I was like, am I prepared to see my husband die, or my child die, or my parents die, or my brothers die, my best friends die? Am I prepared for that? Am I prepared to walk into a situation and see them actively dying or being killed? I really didn't have a good answer for it. And that's where the three responses come in. The fight, flight, or freeze, right? So you're either going to fight off whoever is killing the person that you love, you're going to freak out and run the heck out of there, or you're just going to be completely frozen in time and essentially, depending on the situation, get yourself killed. So there's been a lot of talk about EMPs and Carrington events, and are we headed towards that? I don't know. I hope not, but I got to thinking about how would I respond to that. If I was sitting in bed and suddenly everything goes dark, my phone doesn't work, my power doesn't work, I go outside to start my car doesn't work, what's the next step? So I started running through my mental checklist of how would I respond to that. Well, first off, where's your protection? That's the first thing that came to my mind. Where is the nearest mode of protection that I have? Second, what is my perimeter like? These are just things that I thought of. I was just actively going through a scenario of what would I do should this actually happen. So first off, protection. Second, perimeter. Third, what's going on? What's around me? Like, what's the scenario around me? Is there some kind of commotion? Third is the communication. Fourth is the communication. It's still early, guys, sorry. Fourth is communication. Turn on your whatever radio and start communicating via listening, via actively participating in a ham radio situation. That's number 4 for me. I didn't really get any further than that, because that was enough to let me know what holes I have in my process and my thoughts. And I think if you just run through these thought processes, especially if you're newer to this kind of thing, if you run through those thought processes, that's a lot cheaper than having to buy a book or buy some kind of survival guide or this newfound gadget, gizmo, jam-packed book bag full of everything you're ever going to need when you need to flee the apocalypse. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all apocalypse go bag. I don't think you're going to find it. And until you start doing those actual hard work, thought process, run through the scenario exercises, I don't think that you're going to be as prepared as you could be. You could have every gadget in the world, and if you haven't been in a situation where you need to use those gadgets, those are pretty much worthless to you. For instance, I have several different types of fire starters, and I like to practice using all those different types. I like to use methods where I don't have a fire starter, where I have to just go to it caveman style. If you get put into a situation, you've got some wet firewood and you don't know what to do, so you bust out your fire steel and you think that just throwing a couple sparks is going to catch you a fire. No, it's not. You are in deep. You need to figure out ways to survive when survival sucks. Okay? You need to figure out ways to provide yourself with food, water, protection, shelter. Food, water, protection, shelter. Not necessarily in those order. In that order, sorry. I really cannot talk today. Not necessarily in that order. Food, water, protection, shelter. And you can follow whatever the 5 or a million C's, I don't know how many C's there are, of, Dave Canterbury. I think that those are all, the points that he makes are all pretty good. And as I said before, there's no one-size-fits-all survival gig. You're going to have to figure it out, but that's a pretty good way to get your bearings, I guess. But, so, as I was sitting there, running through this thought process of what the heck would I do, I really didn't know what I would do if I saw, I don't know. It was just very surreal to me because I really tried to get myself as mentally aware of the situation as I could without it actually happening. And I mean, honestly, the first thing I thought was, I will have my sidearm, I will have whatever arm that is available to me, and it will be loaded to the hilt, and I will be on patrol. Now, what good is that going to do me when a giant band of whatever, a gang of people start running up on me? I don't think it's going to be very helpful. I mean, just being real, I don't think it's going to be very helpful. I'm going to run out of ammunition eventually. I'm going to run out of magazines. I'm likely going to get hit. I'm likely going to take on whatever kind of fire or artillery. I don't know. But the fact is, you got to have a plan for when stuff doesn't go your way. So my next thought was, okay, so I've got my protection, I've got my perimeter set up, so now I see what's going on around me and it doesn't look good. Now what? Now what's my escape route? Well, I have pre-planned routes that I intend on taking to evacuate a situation that I think I can't deal with. And so then I started running through, well, what if I go to run through that situation where I need to evacuate and I can't? Then what? And I guess it was just all that really got me, excited is the wrong word, but motivated to amp it up a little bit, because I feel like now's the time to take advantage of everything, because I hate to jump on the bandwagon. I really do. 2020's coming. I think that's going to be a shit show. Do I think an EMP is possible? Yes. Do I think it's likely? I don't know. But I think you need to be prepared. I think you need to think about those things, and I think you need to be careful.
Lots of good points there, and I couldn't agree with her more. Loss is an important thing to consider when you're thinking, you're doing that mental training for SHTF. Loss is incredibly important because it's going to happen. You are not going to be able to wrap everybody up in bubble wrap and put titanium around them. Loss is going to happen, whether it's through some type of warfare, and I'm calling it warfare, some type of a conflict, whether it be through disease, whether it be from an accident. I would say that anybody that survives any length of time at all is going to have to deal with loss. That could be the closest person to you, or it could be somebody you ran across that joined up with your group. Nonetheless, it's something that you're going to have to deal with. Now, here's the thing. You have to be able to deal with it on a level to be able to move on. There's just sometimes in life to where you can't take that time out. In times like today, most of us, in most cases, can take some time to mourn. Okay? Different people mourn different ways, and they mourn for different lengths of time. Okay? Some people mourn by keeping busy, so they don't really mourn. They don't They don't think about it so much. Other people get very lethargic, as an example. I'm kind of going on both ends of the spectrum here. But it's inevitable, and it's something that you have to mentally prepare yourself for now, because it's going to be a huge hindrance later if you don't. If you're one of those people that are, more towards the lethargic direction, then that's something you need to work on. I can only point you to the books that I recommend so highly. A American Survivalist series, Franklin Horton's Borrowed World series. One really, really, really good for this, that will really get you is the 1 Second After trilogy by William Forstchen. Okay, that was a very hard moment when in the book he loses his daughter. Okay, his daughter was I believe it's type 1 diabetic. She had to have the insulin, and of course that's a limited time thing in an SHTF situation. So he prolonged it as long as he could, but the inevitable happened. And I don't mean to give you a spoiler or give out the book, but it really takes you through that, and it's just dealing with that, even if it's on a mental level from say reading books or just thinking about it in your own mind, helps you, and it helps you deal with something before it even happens. So, it's important. It's very valid. I'm glad she brought it up. That's one of those hard topics. It just is. Do what you can, however it is. I mean, I can't tell you how to do it because, you likely mourn differently than me. You've got different life experiences than me. Depending on which person that you would lose might depend on how you mourn or how long you mourn. So it's not something that I can, give you a one-size-fits-all solution to. It's just something you need to think about. You need to run it through your head, and you need to prepare yourself, because that's a fact. Just in everyday life, it's a fact. We're going to lose people. That's just life and death. I mean, it's a part of it. But it's going to be a little more prevalent, and I would say a little more impacting after SHTF, So anyway, it's something to think about, and by all means, don't just throw your hands up and say, oh, well, we're all going to die, or, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be a nihilist, set your mind to it, that you're going to succeed no matter how hard it gets. So anyway, good video. Hats off to her for bringing up a hard topic. Okay, next up is The Prepared Mind with a video titled Full Video, The Old Man and SHTF.
Hello and welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Bam! It has started 2019 out the gates. There's lots of stupid things going on, but I want them to have more time to develop before I comment on them. Yes, the world of politics, the world of economics, the world of social disorder, chaos, it's still out there, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For now, let's talk about this. The topic of this comes from a viewer who sent us a nice question. It somehow got lost in the shuffle, and it's very important, very important. So I want to read the question, and then we'll chat about it just a bit. So it comes from Steve F. He says, I'm not as young as I once was, and although I feel I'm prepared for SHTF, my fighting days are passing me as time goes on. I sometimes feel that if SHTF is going to happen, I'd wish it would just hurry up before old age becomes a liability. Simply stated, I'm prepared through the years, but as time passes and old age is kicking in, what roles do people like myself have as we become older, but not quite in our prime? So, in a couple of weeks here, I hit the ripe age of 49. Now, if 7's a lucky number, 7 times 7 is 49. So I'm like lucky to the second power. But yeah, 49. When I first started doing these videos, I think I was 44. Yeah, 5 years now. I was 44. And even at that point, I was like, man, I'm getting old. I need to share my ideas and get this stuff out here. It has been just a crazy wild ride. I think I've told you guys, but I'll restate it real quickly. I started preparing when I was a teenager. Between the movie Red Dawn, the communist threat, the United Nations takeover, and the threats even back in the 80s of gun confiscation, I've been basically a prepper. And I felt that World War was going to come to us at some point again, and so I joined the Marine Corps, became a Marine, and thought, okay, I'll get some good training here. It'll be useful. I want to save and protect my family from communism. And now here we are. I've got 2 grown sons, 17 and 19 years old. And communism isn't over in the Soviet Union. Communism is now in our country. Anyways, shit is going to hit the fan. It is coming right now. Unfortunately, it didn't hit when I was in my 20s, my 30s. It looks like, if I'm lucky in a way, and from this one perspective that Steve talks about, if it hits when I'm 49, okay, I'm good. I can be of some use. But it's a really valuable question. He asks, as we become not quite in our prime, what role do people have like us? Well, it's the same role that we had that we got from our grandparents. You go talk to your grandma, your granddad, right? They've got some wisdom. They've got some experience, right? They've seen a lot. Some say they've seen it all, right? But because of that, their perspectives and their wisdom is very useful and very valuable. So us, as older folks, we can hand that down, right? My kids grew up with me, but I shower them with attention and wisdom whenever they'll hold still for more than 5 seconds. That is not going to be our primary role when shit hits the fan. But I'll tell you right now, it's going to be a damned important one. Because you've got young, experienced, or inexperienced people out there, just like I was, just like everyone was when you're in your teens and your 20s. You don't have much experience. But the trade-off is when you're that age, you've got a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of piss and vinegar, flowing through the veins. But, you get into your 30s and you get a little maturity, a little more experience, and you've still got a good amount of energy. Well, you get into your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, you start getting tired. One of the things I've done is everything I can in order to stay in good shape. And I think I'm staying in pretty good shape. On the weekends, last weekend I was feeling kind of under the weather, but on weekends I take a 5-mile hike Saturday and then another one Sunday to stay in good physical condition. My eyesight isn't what it used to be. I don't think I could qualify with iron sights at 500 yards with an M16 anymore. I probably couldn't see all the way down to the butts. But I think I'm pretty deadly out to 300 yards at this point still. That said, are you as quick? Are you as fast? Do you have the stamina we have when we were younger? No. That doesn't mean I'm not stronger than I was then, because I'm still a hell of a lot stronger. In fact, I had to fill up a 25-gallon propane bottle today. And the old fellow there that works at the Tractor Supply Company, he says, "Oh, it's you." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I tell people about you all the time. You just pick that 25-gallon tank up, and the tank empty, I think, weighs about 50 pounds. You just throw it in the back of your truck and drive off." And I thought, shit. He had to tell that story to me, so now I got to pick the fucking tank up again and carry it over there and throw it in the truck like it's nothing. Thing's heavy. But, I'm stronger. I think I'm a little more well-versed in what's going on. I understand the psychology of thinking. I understand people and the way they behave and what's needed, right? I can prioritize things. I know how to get things done, how to, there's so much that we as older folks, that is going to be our role. When shit hits the fan, will we have the role of doing dishes, cooking, gathering firewood, fetching water? Yeah, we're going to be doing everything, and everyone is going to have to do everything. That's going to be our role, is everything. As men especially, we've got the heavy work to do, the heavy lifting, the literal heavy lifting, right? There's going to need to be someone who can say, hey, slow down, pace yourself. You've got the whole day, and you're going to have to work. Don't go killing yourself in the first 5 minutes. I can't tell you how many times I heard that when I was younger. And I always thought, slow down, I've got all kinds of energy. Well, after an hour, you start to slow down, right? And those old guys just keep on chugging. So, anyways, that is going to be our role. We're going to have to do everything. But it's not we do everything and no one else does anything. It's we do everything we can. If you can stay in good shape, then you're going to be on patrol, right? But your wisdom is going to be probably more valuable, your experience. If you've been prepping for a long time, you've thought about all the varieties of scenarios. You've thought about the people. You've thought about the weather, right? You've thought about the politics of the situation. You've thought about how your group comes together, and it's just a vast advantage we have as old folks. Is you can go from A to Z and not skip any of the letters in the middle. But getting old, it doesn't mean you're not going to be valuable in a self-defense scenario when it starts playing out. You're going to understand, hopefully, you've gotten some of the field manuals or some other manuals on basic combat tactics, how to do a defensive perimeter, interlocking fields of fire. If you have a foxhole set up, a fighting hole set up, an array out there, you need to have a defensible perimeter. All of those things, right? You understand cover fire. You understand how you don't blow your ammo, right? You just don't go trigger happy. And that's really hard to do. When someone shoots at you, when you hear a round hit near you, it scares the fuck out of you. So anyways, that said, right, that's where you're going to be valuable. Keeping people calm, keeping them focused, right? It's a leadership role that you go into. Now, if you're a doddering person, you're in your 90s and you barely understand, of course, your role is not going to be as big. But if you're right in the middle, and I consider everything from 70 down to 30, that's prime. That's prime time, right? And that doesn't mean people in their 20s aren't valuable and can't know all of this exciting shit too, right? If you start prepping in your teens, right, if your dad's a prepper and you're a young man, of course you've got a leg up on everyone. But our role is to keep a cool, calm head. It's very important. Very important. And also, our role at this age, we're making more money than young people. So our role is also going to be in supplying. If you take a look or go back and read your history, the American Revolution, there were men that donated cannonball, powder, cannons, rifles, equipment, gear, clothing, food. That was their contribution to the revolution. They couldn't get out there and fight. Back then, America was not America today. It was a big, muddy mess, or it was a big frozen mess. And it was hot, it was humid, it was cold and freezing, it was muggy, there were mosquitoes, there was malnutrition issues or starvation and hunger issues. And if it weren't for those rich, or I guess they were wealthy or wealthy enough to donate equipment, right? That was really important. Your role can be to donate equipment. But if someone says, look, we've got to go 3 miles that way and check things out, and then hustle 3 miles back, I'm going to say, look, you young guys, you can run 3 miles each way. I can walk 6 miles, but I'm not going to run it. I can't. Right? My knees are kind of shot. but I can walk it. Still, if I want that information now, get out there, radio it back, right? Being able to supply things is very critical. That's a great role that we can look to ourselves for. I have, a significant quantity of ammunition, probably more than I would care to shoot in a day. And I know that part of my role is going to be, in a shit it's the fan scenario, making sure everyone is properly equipped and stocked in my group. Right? I don't want someone to have a pea shooter while everyone else has essentially light artillery. Right? I don't want, so that is a great role for us to have. And the same thing with food, everything. But having a keen mind is the most valuable. And it's just something that's a trade-off. With age, you get wisdom. And I got to tell you, to have a group full of young guys, that'd be cool, right? But they're going to make more mistakes than an older group that's a little more seasoned and got a little more experience. Especially if you've got some ex-military, a little combat experience, that's terrific. It's helpful. And of course, having the books, having a good library of books is really valuable. And if you've got that as an older prepper, you can pass that right on down to everyone. So don't think, not for a second, as a aging prepper, that we are a liability to others. We're not a liability to others. We may not move quite as fast, but I got to tell you, the difference between me and a young guy running from behind one car to behind a tree, he may be a quarter to a half second faster than me, but a hard target is one that's moving. So if you're moving at all, you're going to stand a good chance of not getting your ass shot off, unless they know how to lead a target properly. Still, just because we're older and a little slower, maybe a little softer around the midsection, that doesn't make us a liability in a very negative sense, in the negative sense of the word. A bigger liability will be somebody who is a hothead, who's got a temper, who hears something they don't like and they just go off, right? Somebody who is imprudent. Now, see, an older prepper is going to be more careful. And yeah, you can come up with a scenario where being too careful is bad. But for the most part, if you're taking risks all the time, unnecessary risks. There's a difference between risk and unnecessary risk. And that person gets shot, it doesn't matter whether they're 50 or 20. They become a liability, right? They have now put themselves in a position where they can't run or can't walk. They're going to have to deal with infection, blood loss. They're not going to be able to pull their own weight. People are going to have to take care of them. They're going to use up valuable medical supplies, valuable antibiotics. That's a liability. You see, so being older, being a little wiser and a little more careful, a little less impetuous, that makes you less of a liability in a lot of ways. So it is all about trade-offs and thinking trade-offs. And again, if you need a team of guys to go get something done in a hurry, bam, that's young guys. They move fast, they get the mission done, they kick some ass. Right? It doesn't mean they're not part of planning. It doesn't mean they can't contribute in all the ways you do. It's just we have our fortes as older guys and gals. So, yeah, don't take that as a negative. And I've been talking to people about this for years. Men and women, couples, families, groups that are older and younger. And it's best, if you can, to get a little bit of everything in your group. So you're well-rounded, well-prepared. Having someone who understands medicine. They're either a trauma nurse or a RN or a physician or a surgeon or a veterinarian. Right, to have someone, a well-rounded team that covers all of the disciplines. That is ideal. It's ideal. Anyways, it's going to get more exciting tomorrow, or rather today. I'm recording this very, very late, and I'm drinking my medicine so I can get a decent night's sleep. And then start early, because first thing this morning, I believe the Democrats take control in the House,
And those games begin. And if you want to talk about people who are inexperienced, who shoot from the hip, who take a lot of risks, it's going to be this new Democrat Party. It's being led by Nancy Pelosi, but there's a huge push for communism in this country. And they're going to try and do everything they can to satisfy those young voters, because they're going to need those young voters in 2020 in the presidential race. So they're going to do all they can to impress them and screw with our world. And it's just going to make the world a more unstable place. It's going to help all of this uncertainty coming from the politicians is going to create more economic concern, worry, and it's just going to bring down the house of cards all that much faster. So get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. Semper Fi, and I'll see you tomorrow. And Godspeed to everyone. Alrighty, now to something that I watched this morning. This is really important, so pay very, very close attention to this video. It's from the Survival Dispatch, and it's titled #1 Survival Tip for an SHTF Scenario.
You always have to remember, in an SHTF situation, Lucky Charms are still magically delicious.
That's right. That's right.
That's all you need. I don't need prairie.
No.
I just need magically delicious.
Magically delicious. Because them leprechauns are going to come for it. Or the children, actually, are going to come for it. Who comes after that? He's always wanting to
steal me Lucky Charms.
Yeah, I forget who's wanting to steal his Lucky Charms.
I'd seen that this morning and about died. Alrighty, next up we have a video from Peaceful Prepper, and it's titled Red Alert 2, Relax.
Hey folks, it's Jim. We're going to do a video, the second part to Red Alert. You can see I put up the old board, or would I do this like 2 years ago or something? I don't know what we did. You know, I forecasted a lot of things that are taking place right now, didn't I? Okay, just wanted to share that. Okay, what just happened was the Fed, Powell, decided not to raise interest rates, right? And in fact, saying that they're not going to raise in 2019 and maybe once in 2020. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that we just tried to normalize the economy again, right, or the monetary system, the paradigm that we live under, and they can't do it. It's been 10 years, folks, and they cannot normalize interest rates. Therefore, the economic paradigm that we live under is done. Now, your Congress knows it, right? Everybody knows it. The world knows it. America cannot return to normal. Okay, and this is why our retirement funds throughout the nation are in trouble. Okay, this is part of the reason they're in trouble, because we can't normalize interest rates, and that would help retirement funds in the long run, and that's how they used to be successful, and that's why they're no longer successful. Retirement funds cannot, not only are they Ponzi schemes, most of them, but they cannot survive at low interest rates. They just can't, because then they have to invest in risky assets, and growth can be unstable and unpredictable, right? So, anyway, So now we know that our economic paradigm is over, and the world knows it, as well as hopefully your Congress and Senate, and that's why they're talking about MMT. Don't panic about MMT. It's modern monetary theory. Japan's been using it for 15 years. So if you've got somebody out there panicking about all this, don't worry about it. It may be the only way for us to go forward, okay? Unfortunately, America is just in debt and in hawk up to its butt, and it's getting worse, right? I think the deficit was $1 trillion this year, so it doesn't matter Democrat, Republican folks, none of that is helping anyone to argue over that stuff. We are just going deeper and deeper in debt, constantly at a higher and higher rate, okay? And that's because the economic paradigm is stalled, all right? And it's just not going to work again. So we're going to have to do something different, but don't panic. The inverted yield curve, you may have heard about that. While that is important, it is not a tomorrow event, okay? Inverted yield curve usually precedes a recession by 9 months to 2 years, okay? Go back and look at economic history. That's what an inverted yield curve does. It does not say that the sky is falling tomorrow. So don't panic over an inverted yield curve, okay? Don't run out saying, oh, we're going to collapse and all that. Don't worry about it, okay? These are just economic indicators, that's all. And I would like to go against that idea as well, because China's small business loans just skyrocketed, okay? So over the last quarter, their small business loans are rising, which means China's growing from within. And it may take a while for your news or your media or whoever you're watching out there to finally get that information. I seem to get things a little bit early, but for whatever reason. Some of the people I would like you to go out and watch are Greg Hunter's interview of Mark Faber on March 16th. If you're confused about MMT, Basel III, and the remonetization of gold, and all of that. That's a really good interview. Another one of Greg Hunter's interview of Andrew Maguire. I don't know what date that was, but it was the same week as Mark Faber. And another interview with Jim Rickards, same week as Mark Faber, okay? All in the March 16th to 21st range, okay? All of those are pretty decent interviews that will talk about what I'm talking about from a rational perspective. The other thing, I listened to somebody with a lot of subscribers, and I don't do names and I don't berate people. This is just a warning to most of you, okay, out there who may be watching people like this. If someone's in the gold business or trying to advise you about money and didn't even know Basel III was taking place on March 31st, you might not want to listen to that person economically. Because if they're in the gold business and they don't know gold's remonetized as a Tier 1 asset on March 31st, and it comes to a shock to them, and they're doing a video about how they weren't aware that that was happening on March 31st, you might not want to listen to them about economics, okay? Because, trust me, that's pretty important if you're in the gold business. And I'm only making a suggestion to you folks. I'm seeing a lot of people out there watching, people who really don't have a clue about finance in the first place. Most of all, world finance, or getting the right information, being able to predict economic models rather than all of a sudden it being a surprise to them that gold's a Tier 1 asset on March 31st. I mean, man, if you're in the gold business, there's no excuse for that. I'm sorry. There's just not. And I would not invest a penny with those people, period. Something I wanted to talk about. Our standard of living in America is being compressed due to debt, and our middle class is shrinking. You all know that. And it has been shrinking over the last 20 years, hasn't it? China's middle class has expanded to 400 million people. You've got to understand that. More than the entire population of the United States is now the middle class of China. And these new small business loans that are coming in, you know, their success rate on small business is far greater than our success rate here in America. And that's only going to expand their middle class even further, folks. You got to know and understand this. That's why I'm not worried about an inverted yield curve, okay? Especially in the U.S. We're becoming less and less important to the world's economic health, okay? While we are important for now and will be for the next 2 to 5 years possibly, we're only 350 million people, and most of Americans are tapped out on debt. 9 out of 10 Americans will not retire worry-free. That's just reality, and you know that. People are choosing medication or food at night sometimes, and that's truly sad. the state that we've come in. The next thing I wanted to get into is one of the problems that we have going forward in America, and I've shared this before on my old series, is China, India, and Russia have 50 engineers for every one we have. And that's really the major problem when we talk about an economics forecast here for America, which doesn't look good. Our paradigm is stalled and it's going to need to be changed. But then we need to look at the realities of the engineer ratio, 50 to 1. Big problem. They got 50 people to solve a problem, we got 1. Can you see the problem here, folks? Major, major problem going forward, and that's the reality of America. And again, we're only 350 million people. We got to accept that. We're tapped out in debt. We got to accept that. We got to change from within and not worry about what's going on outside the world. We have to fix from within, and hopefully we'll get some good people that are all for that in our government. So I've explained to you MMT, don't panic. I've explained to you inverted yield curve, don't panic. It's a leading indicator, okay? And I think that's going to shift because we got China growing from within at a pretty healthy pace again. And Trump will make some good deals, hopefully. He needs to make deals with the Belt and Road because that's where the future is for the world, right, on the Belt and Road. The next thing I wanted to do is get into where's the gold going. If you can follow, right now, it's still, you can trace it. Venezuela's gold is wound up back under the Federal Reserve via Citibank, and now we're leaving it alone, and Russia and China are in there going to try and rebuild it, get an infrastructure so they can get the oil out of there at a reasonable price. And remember Gaddafi. What happened to Gaddafi's gold, right? Place we messed up. What happened to Iraq's gold? Where did it wind up? And that's what I've been telling you about, follow the money, okay? Where is all the missing gold? And is it possible that we, as well as other nations, will reveal that maybe we're holding more gold than we expect? Or did they use it to cover losses in the COMEX from under the Federal Reserve? In other words, did the Federal Reserve screw something up and that gold got leased or fulfilled and they didn't have enough to fulfill anymore? Remember, go back to Germany calling for its gold. It was delayed. Not only was it delayed, they got back different gold than they gave us. They were worried about that. So is it possible that a lot of this meddling we've been doing is about gold on the undercurrent of everything, and we've been filling holes that have been created to cover things up? I don't know, okay? I'm only saying this is something that I see from a rational perspective. But I hope you're all doing well. Don't panic again. I'm going to get into an economic series now about some of the principles I use in my life and about making money, okay? Just remember, folks, we're entering into a new paradigm here, but I think we have 2 to 5 years. And so don't panic. Get prepared, be prepared. You got, you know what I mean? Each day, do what you can, and don't panic, right? Don't make bad decisions. But yeah, I just wanted to cover some of this stuff for you. I think I told you about the interviews, Mark Faber, Jim Rickards, and Andrew Maguire, right? They were all interviewed by Greg Hunter recently. I think they're decent interviews. Yeah. And so my series I'm going to get into going forward is how we can be aware and how we can change our own personal lives and the way we live to help us be more prepared for what's coming, the paradigm change, right? And I think that is more important than worrying about a lot of things that other people are panicking about. In all things, in and of itself, what is it? Hope you're all doing well. And one more thing I wanted to share. If we were to go back to Austrian theory at a fractional reserve of 10 to 1, 90% of the world would be stable. I predicted that 2 years ago, didn't I? Well, that's holding truer and truer every day. 90% of the world's population would be okay. We, not so much. But over almost 6 billion people, yep, that's reality today, folks. Jim out.
Alrighty, let's see here. Get back down on this screen. Let's see. Oh, that's right. Let's talk about prepping. Just came out with one. Let me go ahead and bring it up. I almost forgot. Here we go. This one's titled "This Will Kill Many in SHTF: Fools Appreciation Day." Oops. Helps if I click the right thing.
Hey guys, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and I know that you're all expecting some kind of April Fool's joke video because that's pretty much what everyone is doing today. And I did have a couple of ideas for skits, one of them involving a Monty Python lumberjack skit, which I thought at least one or two of you might appreciate, but the rest of you might not. And another one involving Minute Women, which I can get back to later if enough of you want that. But I've actually been working on an April Fool's joke for the entire time since I started this channel, and I've got about 500 of you in on it. So actually, today's just to celebrate you guys. Thank you, my April Fools. Anyways, I do want to share one thought that I did have today as I was driving to work, and let's call this number one on my list of things that will get preppers killed, because that seems to be a popular topic, and I do sometimes think of things that are likely to get preppers killed in multiple situations. And today, that's traffic. Now, one of my pet peeves is people who pretty much come to a stop to make a right turn on a busy road, and also people who sit there at a green light before realizing that it's green because they're doing their makeup or sitting there on their phone. And both of those things are things that will congest traffic, especially when they accumulate over the course of large groups of people doing the same thing in a line of traffic, and wind up causing people to lose their lives or getting stuck in a city that they wanted to bug out of. So those are my thoughts on something that might get preppers killed, is other bad drivers. One thing that you can do to avoid this problem is to always plot multiple ways that you can get off the road that you're on and get onto a side route to the place that you're going, which involves knowing your area really well and having alternate routes to everywhere that you plan to go. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was interesting, and stay safe out there.
Of course, you also have the option of driving a tank and just running over them, but let's see. That sounds more something like I would do. Let me see here. Okay, let me go ahead and play this one from Ron Paul Liberty Report titled U.S. Sanctions, the Source of Imperial Executive Power.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
I am doing very well, and good to have you here and help me solve all the problems of the world.
Exactly. Easy.
Good, and it looks like things haven't gotten worse over the weekend, but there's something interesting happened, in the last few days, and it has to do with North Korea, and we're trying always to figure out Trump's position on North Korea, and it seems at one time there was a time he wasn't very happy with North Korea when he became president. Now it looks like he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize dealing with North Korea, which must aggravate Bolton and Pompeo and some others. I think that is real, but then it still doesn't answer, well, if there's a real conflict, why are they there? Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that so much, but I want to talk about sanctions, the principles of sanctions. And, I was just thinking, when the hell we had sanctions on North Korea? 1950. And Trump now had an announcement about sanctions. because it looks like the staff or the automatic imposition of sanctions, yes, we're putting on sanctions, they renounce it, and Trump says, no, I'm overruling this. We're not going to put on sanctions. So that's pretty good, and maybe this is a new trend. But he certainly has been in favor of sanctions. He's not opposed to sanctions on principle, but in this case, he came out against putting more sanctions. He says it just hurts the civilians. Yeah. It doesn't do any good. So he had to write answers for why they don't need to put on more sanctions. So I think it's interesting to watch it. I think it's favorable. It's just too bad that we can't, if this is successful for him, which we hope it is, why he can't apply those same principles, then maybe he'll fire a couple of people who always wants more and more sanctions. So we'll just hold our breath a little bit and see what happens.
That'd be a good idea. Fire a few people. And this is, your call just came out this morning where you talk about a lot of this, and probably another example of Trump being right, but not really understanding why he's right. The people have suffered enough. But, with North Korea, the sanctions kicking in, you talk about Bolton and Pompeo and the rest of them resisting it. There was news last week that the reason that the summit blew up, or the Hanoi summit blew up, is that Bolton was whispering in Trump's ear, tell them they have to give us all of their nukes. And that's exactly, remember, that's what we did with Libya. We told Gaddafi, hey, give us all your nukes, and we'll ease up. Yeah, he gave us all the nukes, and we went in there, and he got killed. But the sanctions, you're right. He said, I don't think he realized what he was saying when he said, they've suffered enough. We don't need any more sanctions.
We're in a position now where we just read daily. We can't even keep up. There's hundreds of different, matter of fact, it could be many, many hundreds, because, you have countries, but you have corporations, you have banks, all different kinds of entities can have sanctions placed on them. So it's really very hard to keep up with it, and it's more now than ever before, because we're more in the driver's seat than ever before. We're more in charge of the empire. It's a little bit precarious, but we're still in charge of the empire. So we do use the sanctions and also the financial controls and all the things that we do. But I was just thinking about when all this started. There's probably been a little bit of this throughout our whole history, because we've been involved in other countries' business from early on. But it really got going in the Progressive Era under Woodrow Wilson with Trading with the Enemies Act. And we've talked about this a lot, why that was one big unnecessary war that more or less led to the disaster of the World War II.
Yeah.
But anyway, the war was declared, and they used this as an excuse to pass this law that says if we declare war and we're at war someplace, the president has authority to cut off trading. And I think that's reasonable. If you have a war of defense and there's a declared war, you shouldn't be trading with them, which would be very, very rare that would happen. But what I found interesting is that they've used that. They haven't gotten rid of it. They've made it worse. That's what they have. So I was always fascinated with the Trading with the Enemies Act, because Roosevelt used it. That shouldn't be a surprise. He was sort of a big government guy, but he used it to change it so that it would apply domestically, and it was applied to the executive order he issued to confiscate gold.
Oh, really?
And that way, under the Trading with the Enemies Act, which meant that symbolically this may have significance. That's probably when the American people became the enemy. I used to talk about this. After the Iraq War, we had to deal with the enemy, and of course the sanctions and all the problems and the and all these people came down. It was the American people who suffered the most by loss of a lot of freedom. So anyway, he used Trading with the Enemies Act to take the gold away from the American people and open up the door that all you had to do is have an executive order. So the president comes along, he issues these executive orders. I just wonder whether that has anything to do with the expansion of the imperial presidency.
It seems to be an amazing tool. And we were talking about sanctions before the show, and I was doing some research. I wanted to have a list of everything we sanction. And it's not that easy, because there are so many different curlicues, different ways it's done, different executive orders, different pieces of legislation, and there's just no way of doing it. So I went to the Department of Treasury site, OFAC, Office of Foreign Assets Control, and actually if we have the screen and switch over to here, Here's a quick little handy resource of the active sanctions programs. And you scroll down and see Belarus, Cuba, Iran, Iraq, they're still on the list, Libya, Magnitsky, Somalia. You're going, it's okay, that doesn't look too bad. It's a lot of it. But then when you click in, you say click into here, and then you see a bunch of new stuff. Underneath that, it goes on and on and on, and then more and more and more. So underneath that is something more. And this is only one aspect. But then you went over, there's another way that they sanctioned, and that's against individuals. Here's the Office of Foreign Assets Control, specifically designated individuals and blocked persons list. So these are people, companies, things that you better not do trade with or you're going to be in trouble. So I started scrolling down here, and I kept scrolling, and I kept scrolling, and I kept scrolling. It's almost 1,300 pages. So if you happen to get into business with someone, you better study this, Dr. Paul.
It's not funny, but it's really a bad joke, you know, when you look at this, and then they pretend that we're still running an honest, open democracy here. But, you know, the whole thing is this thing can open up, and the Congress has authority. Matter of fact, they have authority over foreign commerce. I mean, the president's not supposed to be doing this at all. So what they do is they give the power, Trading with the Enemies Act, plus, hundreds and hundreds of more. We turn it over. They can declare an emergency, and they do all this. So it's the Congress does this for 100 years, just wash their hand. So in a way, what we're talking about, Daniel, right now is this whole thing of what happened in the progressive era. That's when it was started, and it's been built on. And if you add up all the death and destruction that we were involved in the 20th century, and we haven't done so well in the 21st century either. But it's just a consequence of that progressive era, and yet there's now who are clamoring, in the Congress saying the progressives aren't strong enough. What we need is, really total government control of the economy and the whole works. And so this is a philosophic issue, and this is a consequence of a bunch of bad ideas, and a consequence of the empire building, and the consequence of just totally ignoring the pretense of what was intended by the Constitution by having a small federal government, but now we have an imperial presidency, and you're almost not allowed to say anything because you can be accused of being unpatriotic if you're not for the wars and the imperial presidency. Somebody has to take care of this, and then they can fight over the details of when and to whom the sanctions should be placed on.
Yeah, that's a great image that you point out, how Congress washes its hands. And I remember when I was working for you on the Hill, the staffers of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the International Relations Committee as it was called back then, were all excited when a new sanctions bill was coming up. The ILSA, which they always talk about, the Iran-Libya Sanctions Act, was passed in 1996. And that, of course, sanctioned Iran and Libya. It came up for reauthorization periodically. And in fact, in 2016, they extended it for another 10 years. So on and on it goes. They took Libya off of the act because Gaddafi gave over his nukes, and then they had to go ahead and put it back on because they wanted to invade him anyway. But Congress passes these, and they'll put in a little thing, the president can waive aspects of the sanctions with a note. So basically, Congress's approach is sanction everything, call it a Freedom Act, the Iraqi Freedom Act, the Belarus Freedom Act, all these. But put sanctions on everything, and then just leave it up to the president. He can waive it if he wants.
That's the right word, everything. It isn't that in time of war you place sanctions on a government and say, you just can't go in with that country and trade with them. You have sanctions and controls if we get annoyed on the banks, on the corporations, on individuals, and it goes on, different countries. And we put the sanctions on, and then the consequences are so disastrous that Congress doesn't even monitor it. They don't know what's going on. I mean, even you, Daniel, you're so well-versed, and you're shocked at what you found. I mean, it's terrible how monstrous this is, and yet, the president has probably endured more hate than any other president ever. He's the one that's in charge of this. But do they direct? Do the people who do not like some of the things that he does? Do they ever talk about the principle? Why does he have so much power? They don't want to give up the power. They just get annoyed because of his personality. That's what it is. So we decided they decided they're going to hate Trump, so they let that go. But they don't address this and say, why does anybody have this much power to control things? And of course, what is the consequence? It's always for our benefit. And my argument is, and you've made the same point, that they don't work. They backfire on us. We hurt more than anything. Just think the recent comments we've made about the consequence of the Iraq War, the death and destruction and the children that died, and driving the Iraqis into the arms of the Iranians, and on and on. But they never give up. They never have any grief over making a mistake. They've never made a mistake. It was something else that caused the problem. But they've never made a mistake. That is what I'm talking about, the interventionists, the people who play this game of sanctions. And now nobody would think anything about going to war without a declaration. Reminds me, Daniel, and I think you'll remember this, is when we were debating the Iraq War. I brought up the subject. You guys, you people in this committee, you don't. If you want to go to war, declare war. Yeah. So I introduced the amendment. It said to go to war, and I said, I'm not going to vote for this, but you guys went to war, so what are you going to do? Are you going to vote for it? And the chairman of the committee said, well, Dr. Paul, we know you're an expert on the Constitution, but that part of the Constitution is anachronistic, and we don't even follow it anymore. I think that is really tells a story about what was wrong in Washington.
And remember that insane legalistic argument they gave you for it. It was all about how insurance doesn't work the right way in times of war and all this crazy, convoluted thing. But the idea of sanctioning Americans can be put in trouble if you trade with countries that we're not at war with. We're not at war with Venezuela, no matter what people think about their government. We're not at war with Iran. We're not at war with Russia. But if you as an American want to spend your money and make an investment in one of these places, you could be in pretty deep trouble. You could end up in prison for a long time. And you talk about freedom, we're subservient really to our government's foreign policies. It's terrible.
Right, and there are precise goals that are out there. When you're running an empire, you assume this responsibility, but you have to build yourself up believing that you are special and that you have a moral responsibility. At least that's their excuse. But it's about really empire. It's about money, power, and oil. Trade routes. The whole works, and that type of thing has been going on for a long time. But right now, I think it's coming. We're approaching a climactic end to this. I see this in a financial situation that we just don't go on, inflating the debt. They say there's no inflation, but just look at what's happening to the debt that's happening. But the other thing that is very much inflated is the feelings and hostilities and disapproval of America, the United States government. It's at a point where people are just itching, and there are a lot of plans being laid to compensate and do something because they're anticipating that we will come down because it's not viable. It's never been a system like this has ever been viable before, and there's a lot of planning going on. And the thing that scares me is that the foundation of our system, the worldwide system as well as the dollar system and our form of government, all you have to do is look at what this has done is turn two groups of people into hating and despising each other. So it's very, very precarious, and this could turn nasty pretty quick. But going back to my original thing, they have to look at the principle of the intervention and the trading and turning over everything to the imperial president. So if anything, who really is to blame, I believe it's the people. The people, because they were sloppy, they were naive, they trusted their politicians, they believed their politicians, they didn't know that you're supposed to be leery of government. The founders were always leery of government. Jefferson and others just warned about the size and scope of government. So they just left it alone. But then, if if nothing else, even if the people are sloppy, what happens is you send sloppy people to Washington who endorses all this stuff, and to the point where it's going to be very hard to turn it. Matter of fact, I don't believe, and I've said it before, there's not going to be a switch turn, and we'll come to our senses and we'll work our way out of it. It's theoretically possible, but it's very, very, very unlikely that that's going to happen. It'll end badly. So to me, the real question is what will replace it? And of course, that's what I want to participate in, and to make at least a suggestion, as you do so well, suggest that, in foreign policy area, there is another foreign policy, and it's compatible with the good part of America, and we should consider it. But right now, the competition between the different sides are building up when you think about what's going on in the U.S. Congress at the moment.
Absolutely. And you look at Iran, when we had that brief period after the deal with Obama, people were trading with Iran, things were opening up, they had a moderate president, the Germans were happy, they were making a bunch of money. It does work, and it works well. So,
well, I think, excuse me, but I think what you just said applies to Russia. I was an optimist in the early 90s, and we were trading and traveling, and people were going back and forth, and all of a sudden, boom, somebody said, oh, we don't want peace to break out. We can't make a lot of money off peace.
And they're making money and making jobs. That's the thing. So I would just close just as, things that we're looking at. I'm looking at the Ukraine election. It turns out that it's kind of a comedy in a way, in that a comedian looks like he may be elected. He got the most votes with 30%. A shock from the rear, Poroshenko, who has been trailing in third place all along, all of a sudden, just before the election, there was a shock poll showing him bursting through to second place. I don't know how that happened. I'm sure it was all on the up and up, but definitely something to watch. Here is another U.S. regime change operation that's gone bad, that's fizzled. Nothing good's happening there. So we're keeping an eye on that. Maybe we'll even tackle it later this week, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, you guys complain a lot and say you don't like this or that, but you never make a suggestion of what we should do. I think that's an incorrect criticism, because we're making suggestions all the time. It's just that a lot of people don't want to hear about our suggestion. But I don't think it's complex. I mean, the guideline, there's a lot of shortcomings in the Constitution, but it could be a guideline on what to do. But if you're thinking about principles, there's two things. Think about everything we do. Take money issue, for instance. Think of it in moral terms. Is it morally sound to turn over the power of counterfeiting to a bunch of people in secret to run the welfare warfare state? Yeah, the moral principle is very, very important. But then if you want something even a little more simple than that, is just say that if you're expanding the power and the control of government over the people, or an attempt for our government to control other people, always go in the opposite direction. And this is where I think we're making progress, because more than half the people in this country are sick and tired of what our government tells us and what they do. They're confused on how to get out of it and where to go, but they do not fully trust the government. There were times when the government deserved a little more, credit, and now that they've gotten into so many problems. The American people now are very skeptical, and there's less trust of the government. I think that's healthy, but it is true. We have to talk about and describe what a society would be like and what the obligations are, because sometimes the obligation is what scares people. You mean I'd have to take care of myself? You mean I'd get to keep everything I earned if I did that? But I'd have to take care of myself. Who's going to run the safety net? Who's going to, all those arguments for big government. But anything that expands the power and scope of government it cannot be helpful to the cause of liberty. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Alrighty, let's see. Got one from Survival Prepping for Normal People titled Perception versus Reality.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to Survival Prepping for Normal People. Today, I wanted to talk to you about perception and why it's so important, especially to survivalists and preppers, because our perception informs a lot of our beliefs, and of course your beliefs inform your knowledge informs your plan informs your direction, right? So these things all have a way to work like dominoes. The reason I bring this up is because I'd made that video a couple of weeks ago, pretty much at the onset of the floods and everything going on in Nebraska and other states in the Midwest, and they've lost over 1 million head of cattle, lots and lots of wheat, grain, soybeans, corn, a lot of feed products, things that animals eat, and then of course, you know, we consume the animals. So there's going to be a spike in food prices. And a lot of other channels were talking about it kind of at the same time I was, and a lot more picked up on it later. Of course, Adapt 2030 and Ice Age Farmer, both channels that I really like, they were talking about it, and I was talking about it. And they were talking about all the devastation, and then I was kind of like, you know, well, that's going to cause a spike in food prices. Well, I got a person who made a comment on that video, and they're from the Central Valley in California. And if you know anything about the San Joaquin Valley in California, it's an agricultural area, and it's huge. It's huge. It's like twice the size of the state of Rhode Island, something like that. Anyway, there's dairies, there's cattle farms, there's all kinds of orchards, all kinds of other agriculture going on. So when you're in the middle of that place, let's say you're somewhere like Modesto or even somewhere further south like Bakersfield or somewhere further north like Fresno, whatever. If you're in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley, you look around and you think you're surrounded by food, that it goes on forever. So this individual made the comment, oh, it's just 1 million head of cattle. You know, there's so much food. We have too much food. There's no reason for prices to spike. Well, this is this person's perception, and this is why it's so dangerous. And I said, okay, so when you're paying $14 a pound for a ribeye, let me know how that's working out for you. Here is what's key to understand about any time there's a disaster or any kind of shortage like this. Okay, let's say the cattle herd in the United States, let me just throw out a round number. Let's say it's 350 million. Okay, 1 cow for each person in the country, roughly. And it's something like that. I mean, it may actually be more cattle than there are, more head of cattle than there are head of people in the country. But let's say 350 million. So you lose 1 million, right? That's not even a percentage point. But that doesn't matter, because the media has been playing up the disaster all over the place, okay? They've been showing pictures of the floods, pictures of the flood damage, pictures of the dead cattle, pictures of the damaged silos, pictures of the damaged storage areas. And so you've got the casualties, the 1 million dead cattle or so that they're still counting. It's going to be a higher number than that most likely. And then you've got the damage to the grain storage areas, and then damage to the fact that they haven't been able to plant grain crops. And you have to understand, animal feed directly affects what you pay for your chickens, your pigs, your beef, everything else. So the perception is that there's this major disaster, and it has been, and it is. Okay, ask any of those people in those Midwest states, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, all those other places that's been getting the flooding. It's terrible, and it's not only damaging what they have, it's hampering their ability to get stuff going. And when it's time, right now, it's time to plant and get things rolling for this growing season. So of course that's going to cause a spike in prices, even if it was less than 0.1% of the entire food crop in the United States, whether grain, vegetable, or meat product. Okay, that doesn't matter. Okay, the people like Cargill, ConAgra, all these big agricultural interests, these big factory farm corporations, they're going to use any excuse to raise up the prices. And then when people say, well, you're raising prices unfairly and there's a spike in food prices, why? They'll flash up the pictures of hundreds of square miles of some of America's most fertile farmland and most furtive cattle areas underwater, and they'll show pictures of hundreds of thousands of dead cows and whatnot, and say, well, this is why. It's just like the oil industry, and this is something down in Texas that we notice pretty regularly. Anytime there's a tropical disturbance in the Gulf, okay, you've got oil rigs all over the place. You've got production rigs out there that are actually pumping the oil out, and the tankers come and get it, and they bring it in to have it refined or whatever. Anytime there's some kind of tropical disturbance, they evacuate the rigs, because you can't go out and save the guys. It may be only 5, 6 people, 20 people manning these rigs, whatever it is, but you can't go out there and pick them up in a helicopter or a crew boat once the storm is there, so you got to go get them early, and that's based on projected tracks of the storm. So if the storm never materializes, guess what? There was still a disruption in production. It could be a minuscule amount. Like I'm saying, 1/1000% of whatever, right? But it doesn't matter because it's already hit the news. The perception's already there that there's going to be this big impact, and there is, because they take the people off the rigs, they go home, they see their families, whatever, they're getting ready to do whatever they got to do in case there is a storm coming in. And then when one doesn't happen, they got to get the people back out there, they got to get the rigs back up and running and producing again or whatever. So there is an impact, and every time that happens, the oil companies use that as a perfect, foot in the door to raise prices. So this person says there's no reason prices should raise. Reason doesn't have anything to do with it. It's perception. It's profit. Anytime something involves large corporations, any chance they get, to bump prices and bump sales and bump revenue and bump profits a little bit, of course they're going to do it. So you got to be very careful not to attack people that are just bringing you the message. Perception is a two-edged sword. Perception allows you to look at things and kind of say, I wonder how this is going to affect me from my point of view, where I stand. How am I going to gain or lose by this? And at the same time, it can be used against you. People can get you to perceive things a certain way. And like I said, perception informs your direction and how you react to things because it's what you believe you see, right? So if it informs your beliefs, if that informs your knowledge, if that informs your plan, then yeah, it's going to have an effect on you. So to think that because you live in the middle of a very fertile and productive agriculture area and all you can see is farms and orchards and agriculture for 100 miles in every direction doesn't mean that's everywhere, right? So yes, when there is no food coming from the Midwest, then the food that does come out of California is going to get that much more expensive. Whether you believe it should or not, the people that are investing in commodities futures and whatnot, they know, and this happened, well, I'm not even going to get into the timing of the markets and everything else, but those who play the positions, especially in the commodities market, anytime there's a disaster, they always do awesome. They do great. It's just the way it is. What was that movie, Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, where they had a guy that was going to buy orange juice futures, right before there was this big giant freeze. Well, guess what? If you're holding orange juice and there's a freeze and half the crop is damaged, then whatever you were in control of is worth twice as much now because there's half as much left, right? It's real basic economics. It's not rocket science. So don't become a victim of your own perception or misperception. And I don't know to what extent food prices are going to spike. It's going to happen, right? It just is. There's no way around it. How much of an impact is it going to have on people? I don't know. But a lot of people hadn't thought about it. So I'm putting the word out there. Buy the stuff that's on the shelf right now while it's cheap, because the stuff that's going to replace it's not going to be. Not for a while. And anytime food prices spike because of disasters or shortages or droughts or whatever, the price never goes back down. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that. Now, gasoline and diesel, the price will fluctuate. Diesel, not so much. I've noticed over the last couple of years, gasoline will fluctuate quite a bit, and diesel pretty much stays the same. And there's a reason for that. Nobody needs gasoline to make the economy work, but everything that you buy, everything you consume, everything that you touch, at some point in its lifespan on the supply chain is on the back of a truck somewhere going a long way. So yeah, diesel stays high because there's no getting around. There are no Prius Peterbilts. I'm sorry to say. There are no hybrid big rigs. So yeah, they all run on diesel, and that's why diesel, it'll go up and it'll come down just a little bit, but man, it doesn't fluctuate nearly like the price of gasoline does, because there's always a constant demand for it. There may not necessarily be that constant demand for gasoline all the time, but of course it jumps right before it's time for everybody to hit the road during the summer and whatnot, conveniently. So yeah, when you're talking about disasters and their impacts on prices of consumer goods, you need to be real careful. Just because you live in the middle of a forest doesn't mean everybody has trees. You live in the middle of farm country doesn't mean that that's everywhere. That's what you see. That's your perception. So I'm glad you're out there in California growing food. Really appreciate that, because if it wasn't for that, or if there was a major disaster in the San Joaquin Valley there in California, then what? Now we've got two of the largest, most productive agricultural areas in the country hit. So let's hope that nothing happens to you guys out there. Then what are you going to say? Oh, well, we grow a lot of food in Texas. Should I say that? I mean, Texas does grow a lot of food. It's a huge place. There's plenty of cattle farms here, ranches. There's tons of agriculture. Yes, we even grow oranges. We grow rice and everything in between down here in Texas. So, yeah, does that mean that just because something was to happen to the Midwest and then something happened to California that everything's okay because Texas grows food too? Hell no. That means the price of what we do put out here is going to triple and quadruple, and it's going to impact everybody else. So something to think about. Like I said, you know, that last video I did about idealism, a lot of people got upset about that. But it's easy to be idealistic when you're not hungry and the choice is between your idealism and your family slowly starving. People have to really realize what they're made of. You really need to know who you are. You really need to know what informs your decisions. A lot of people go through life on autopilot a lot more than they think they do. And that's going to be dangerous in a shit hit the fan scenario. You're going to have to be fully in control of your faculties at all times if you're going to make it. And that's just survival. There are rules to it that there are immutable laws to survival. You just can't get around it. And being situationally aware doesn't just mean on the outside. It means on the inside too. So perception can be dangerous, and it gets used against us all the time. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank you for being on the team. I want to ask you, what have you done today to get ready?
Alrighty, let's see. I got a video. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to share this, and I almost did. This is from on YouTube. On Facebook. He's known as Bo of the Fifth Column. I don't know if he's got a YouTube or not. I have no idea. I know he's on Facebook. I see his stuff from time to time. I did like his page and stuff, so I do see his content from time to time. He put out a video, I guess it would have been this morning, and he makes so many awesome points in this video. Listen to him close, because there's a lot of people that especially the right or the conservative-minded people that get put off by this guy pretty quick. But he makes a lot of valid points, and I think he winds up a direction this time that most people wouldn't expect from him if they follow him. Again, the points he's got are completely valid, and I think he hit the nail on the head here. By the way, the name of this video is Let's Talk About What We Can Learn from the Three Mexican Countries. Oops, hang on a minute here. I forgot I have my Facebook tabs muted, so here we go.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. If you're a conservative, I need you to stick with me for the first minute or so. There's going to be some jokes in it you're probably not going to like, but there's something really important for you at the end. Seriously. Not an April Fool's thing. Okay, so we have to talk about the three Mexican countries. If you don't know, yesterday Fox News ran a segment, and in the ticker it said, Trump slashes aid to three Mexican countries. Even Fox News viewers were looking at their screens like... And it's hard to get a Fox News viewer to do that, but it happened. Of course, they weren't actually talking about three Mexican countries. They were talking about El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. The internet did not disappoint. There were jokes all day, My favorite being there are three Mexicos, Mexico, New Mexico, and certified pre-owned Mexico. There are three Mexicos, and Trump can't get any of them to pay for the wall. Of course, he's worried about Mexico. The country is multiplying. It's all pretty funny. It really is. But why he is cutting the aid is not funny at all. It's pretty unnerving. I don't want to get into whether or not it's a good idea to cut the aid. just about every expert says it's just going to create more refugees. I kind of disagree, to be honest, with almost every expert. I think that if the aid money is gone, the puppet strings are gone as well. And these people can have their countries back and we'll stop messing them up. Maybe the people will be able to realign their countries. I know that's a little accelerationist, but that's honestly kind of how I feel. But why did he cut the aid? This is where it gets important. Because they didn't do enough to stop the refugees from leaving. Exit visas. Something that went out more or less with the Cold War. Iron Curtain. Exit visas. That's really what we're talking about. There's some countries that still have these today, but they're not really what we would consider bastions of freedom. So another way to say this is that he believes it is government's job to stop you from leaving if things get bad. Another way to say that would be he believes that it is his job as head of government to stop you from leaving if things get bad. Yet another way to say that would be the guy who wants to build a wall and a militarized border along the southern part of the United States believes it is his job to stop you from leaving. Man, that's kind of unnerving. And I know right now the conservatives are like, Ann, USA, USA. America's number one. Why would I ever leave? Yeah, okay. And you trust Trump with his power. I'm sure God Emperor Trump, he would never do you wrong. But what about when he's out of office? You trust Pelosi, Schumer, AOC with that kind of power? With the ability to determine whether or not you leave? Maybe there's a reason these things went out of vogue. Maybe there's a reason exit visas aren't really a thing anymore. Even in most tin-pot dictatorships, you don't have them anymore. I mean, let's see, Saudi Arabia still has them. Qatar, Russia, Belarus. Those are the only four I can think of. I'm sure there's others. But off the top of my head, that's it. Yeah. And there's Trump. Let's bring it back. How would you stop them from leaving? They're giving up everything they know. Everything they know, everything they own, they're already giving it up. There's only one way to do it. The power you grant to your favorite politician is going to be there when the politician you hate takes charge. Maybe nobody should have this kind of power. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.
Alrighty. I think he made some very, very valid points there. I really do. You know, I think we need to stop giving these other countries money, and I think we need to stop tearing them down. So, you know, it's both are doing nothing but creating the problem, and then we turn around and we cry about the problem. You know, we just gotta get out of other countries' business altogether, completely. Which means, guess what? We have to give up control of them. That's where the problem is, right? They want to control them, and the best way to control them is to destroy them, is to sanction them, you know, and basically take over all their natural resources, or any hope that they would actually be able to collect anything on their natural resources. It's a shame. Let's see. Oh man, I tell you, long day. Okay, let's do this one from Full Spectrum Survival titled Economic Collapse Triggered, New Gun Control Laws, and Working Tribal Medicine.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Full Spectrum Survival News. Today is Monday, April the 1st of the year 2019. Government positions and the mainstream continue to push propaganda toward the masses of how certain aspects of the American Economic Index are growing stronger than they ever have been before. They do this without detailing that those certain aspects in particular are often the exact avenues of economic viability that are used to measure the rich becoming richer at the hands of the affected populace, of you and me. New research shows that U.S. retail sales fell harshly in February in the latest signal that economic growth has shifted into a downward trend, as almost unheard of and narrowly discussed stimulus plans from the $1.5 trillion tax cuts and increased government spending continues to fade into non-existence. According to economists, this most recent drop in consumer spending shows plainly that more Americans are finding it harder than ever to spend any money at all on non-essential items amid a slowing global growth and the waning effects of U.S. President Donald Trump's tax cuts that took place at the end of 2017. Roughly 70% of all economic activity comes from consumers. This, of course, means that a slump in retail sales will likely have a rippling effect that will continue to rock the Western economy for months, or some say for even years to come. The economy is disjointed, economists warn. We are only seeing reactive numbers increase to events that took place months or even in some cases years ago. The only viable economic index is consumer spending, and this is due to the fact that if consumers, that is you and me, the American people, and in other areas, the Western people, are not making enough money to spend on non-essential items, then the economy is plainly in a downward trend, because after the dust settles and all is said and done, large corporations and how much money a manufacturing plant makes does not fall in line with the pocketbooks of 300 million people in the case of the U.S. barely being able to pay their bills. In other news on tyranny, New Zealand's government has introduced a new set of laws into action that will ban almost all semi-automatic firearms from being owned by the populace within the country. The bill is said to have support across all areas of the government in a sweepingly visible display that when it comes to removing the rights of the people of a country at the hands of the government as a whole, each side of the government in a false party-divided system will work to take action against the majority. Following the steps that some regions of the United Kingdom took to make access to firearms near impossible for all but criminal elements, and in addition to banning most semi-automatic firearms, the bill also prohibits the sale, import, supply, or even possession of pump-action shotguns that can be used with detachable magazines or over 5 shots, while providing initial exemptions for groups such as bona fide collectors of firearms, they say, and pest controllers. These initial drawbacks hope that the government will quiet the citizens by allowing the gun grab to go through without access to those in favor of a defenseless populace so that they can point their fingers and exclaim, "See, some dangerous weapons will still be available." It will only be a matter of time, this warning comes from researchers who have taken into account the actions that Britain and other countries have taken amongst themselves to remove the citizens' ability to use the exact same weapons that would-be attackers will use against them. This is before complete removal and inaccessibility is a reality. Acting upon this near-tyrannical move, researchers stress that this is the exact set of traps or steps that the United States will take when the sentiment of the nation as a whole finally loosens toward complete gun confiscation. As New Zealand announced the creation of a registry of firearms that will be used to track existing guns, harsh penalties for those who will not give them up in time, and a buyback program that will use millions of dollars to offer the public to hand in their right to self-defense, all upon the weight of their own shoulders. An amnesty, they say, will be given up until September 30th to hand over banned weapons. In other news, for decades, tribal groups and people in general, those who have lived near certain environments or areas of our planet, have expressed certain immunities to various infections and diseases with a so far unknown cause for their enhanced immunity beyond broad speculation of cause. This drive for disease protection is a main reason that the awake and aware, us here in our community, are gravitating from involved urban life in cities where the separation of mankind and nature is at its greatest, toward rural environments in which mankind still holds a symbiotic relationship of sorts with nature, still looking towards self for the procurement of sustenance through hunting and through gardening, two techniques of life that are lost on the majority of the mainstream populace, those who look to further distance themselves from the realities of life. They don't want to know where their food comes from. New researchers presenting their findings to the American Chemical Society have shown another reason that a close relationship with nature is more important now than it ever has been before, with the discovery that a bacteria derived from the slick gel that is found on common fish has antibacterial properties. This viscous-like gel, or substance that coats common fish, they say, also protects them from bacteria, fungus, and viruses. It does so by trapping the microbes before they can cause infections. This substance, they say, is also rich in polysaccharides and peptides that are well known to have antibacterial properties. The discovery lends credibility to witch doctors and soothsayers of our history's past, in which tribal leaders and healers would record ancestral information, sometimes curative elixirs that were discovered by accident, and other times mixtures of natural medicines that were developed through decades or ages, even centuries of trial and error, often turning toward what would sound like ludicrous combinations of treatment options. Case in point, the rubbing of the slime of a fish on a wound to stop or halt an infection. This study and its history reminds us that the world around us, both now and during a disaster, is complete with causative and curative properties, and that we in our community should look toward historical texts, never discounting potential treatment options that might just be what we need in the event of a long-duration emergency to heal or cure something. And finally, intelligence figures are warning that credible intel gathered over the course of the past 72 hours in Israel suggests that a Palestinian Islamic extremist group is preparing a, quote, significant attack to undermine the ceasefire agreement that was put into place between Israel and Hamas. According to the report, security forces deployed along the Gaza Strip, the security fence witnessed unusual activity by the group's military wing, leading security officials in that region to look toward intelligence gathering efforts as they believe that the group may be planning a rocket attack or a series of attacks or seeking to breach the security fence itself in the coming hours or days. As always, we'll be posting the links to each one of these stories to patreon.com/fullspectrumsurvival. And thank you guys for helping us reach that goal. We're going to talk more about it tonight. This week's Full Spectrum News is also brought to us in part by MRENation.com, our community's source for meals that are ready to eat. They're adding new MREs, and if you use the code FSSDEAL, you'll receive 25 feet of 550 paracord, that's fire lighting cord, with every order of $50 or more, or FSS10 for 10% off of your order. From Kelly and I to you and yours, please stay safe and keep watch.
Alrighty, he's got a second video here too. I'm going to go ahead and play it now. Again, Full Spectrum Survival. It's titled World War III, Ebola Spreading Too Fast, and Israel and USA Alliance.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Full Spectrum Survival's News on the Night Shift, where we cover important news events for the evening of April 1st, 2019. First, great news. We hit our goal with sponsors on FullSpectrumSurvival.com, and we are already beginning production of a new series here on YouTube for everybody. So thank you to each one of you for helping us to reach that goal and make that possible. Now on to tonight's news. Take them with missiles and pay them with dollars. That quote comes from one military strategist who sees a new direction coming in the face of anti-government and anti-Western fighting. This is after a missile barrage into Israel was met with a campaign of military power from the IDF against those thought to be behind the attack itself. Israel is reported to have agreed to a payout of $300 million to Hamas in reparation for a use of force that the United Nations and other outlets have called extremely overwhelming. In the face of adverse reaction, they say. According to the sources familiar with this new agreement, This newest reparation is thought to be a string breaking between Israel and Hamas that some strategists warn will cause the IDF to seek justification for the use of force in the coming days, weeks, or even months following its instantiation. Other terms of the agreement are said to include an expansion of the flow of food supplies and building supplies into the Gaza Strip, discussions on a maritime line linking Gaza to ports in Egypt, and a permanent Egyptian mission will be established in Gaza to monitor the new accord's implementation with high-ranking Egyptian intelligence figures present on the ground at all times. In related news, and in preparation for a time in which Israel will call upon the United States military as its largest and most powerful military ally in a predictive move that anti-Western governments warn will one day draw the entire world into war, the military of Israel has announced the end of the first practical deployment of the American-instituted THAAD anti-ballistic missile systems and defense systems in Israel on Monday. The missile defense system was deployed to Israel in early March along with 250 American personnel that belong to the U.S. European Command. This is as part of a joint drill between these two countries. During the drill, the THAAD system, which is considered one of the most advanced systems of its kind in the world, the two militaries saw out a variety of scenarios as well as the ability to integrate the THAAD system into the IDF's air defense array. The following is from the publication. The IDF cooperates with American forces in order to enable coordination and improve the operational capabilities that are necessary for defending the skies of Israel. The deployment is another step in strengthening the long-term relationship between the two countries and strengthening the close cooperation between them. Moving on, the World Health Organization is warning that the Ebola virus is spreading faster than it ever has been before. With new reports, but more alarmingly, they say nearly 3 out of 4 Ebola deaths recorded over the course of the last few weeks have occurred outside of treatment centers. This means that there is a much larger chance that the disease itself has been transmitted to other human beings, those that helped care for the sick and bury the bodies. Disease researchers warn that it is only a matter of time before a disease showcasing a 60% death rate meets Americans and Western populace, Western people on Western soil. It's not a matter of if, they say it's a matter of when. The numbers are in the favor of the disease, according to researchers who warn that governments of the first world, the US, the UK, must do more to enhance screening and prepare the individual so that the individual can administer a certain level of self-care in the event of a large breakout, rather than everybody rushing, thousands of people or even hundreds of thousands of people rushing to treatment centers and care facilities, only to spread the disease among those who have it to the healthy, by those that are sick, of course, and seeking necessary treatment. Information being published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine shows that families and healthcare providers across the world may be able to protect children and others from asthma by introducing foods that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids while simultaneously reducing foods that are rich in omega-6 acids, such as soybean oil and corn oil. A 6-month study of children from Baltimore City by Johns Hopkins medicine researchers has added to evidence that having more omega-3 fatty acids in their diet, such as from fish and other things, resulted in fewer asthma symptoms. The same study suggests that higher amounts of dietary omega-6 fatty acids, corn oil, soybean oil, has the opposite effect and is associated with more severe asthma. As we prepare for a time when Western medicine and emergency treatment options may become limited or altogether inaccessible, it is important in our community to make changes now in our houses to prevent the need for both following a long-duration emergency. In other news, we are in the middle of an extinction event that researchers say could lead our grandchildren to never see a lizard or a frog in their entire life. This warning is coming from researchers looking at data on amphibian and reptile species around our planet. The researchers warn that this news changes everything. They go on to stress that humanity as a whole should be very alarmed. It should be scared of these practices, including the introduction of chemical pesticides into non-sustainable practices that have played a part in the mutation of a fungus which they say has decimated the populations of 501 amphibian species across our planet. This is from the research paper. The microorganism causes an infectious disease that affects amphibians worldwide. In the past 50 years, it has caused a decline in the populations of at least 501 species. In some cases, they have dwindled down to less than 10% of their original distribution, and 91 species are believed to have become completely extinct across the board. The research body provides evidence to the understanding that this extinction event that we're undergoing right now will have a lasting effect on humanity. Scientists warn that we are only now beginning to see the effect of this massive loss of life in the reptile and amphibian chain, and what it has on the human food supply chain as the entire food web is disturbed. This may be the beginning of the end for food plenty, some warn. We may begin seeing extreme food shortages and fallout effects from this ongoing catastrophe for decades or centuries to come. The story is a reminder to our community to begin growing our own food and husbanding our own animals, no matter how large the scale is, even if it's just one herb plant or garnishing plant on our windowsill, so that we can be that much more prepared for a disaster, one that separates humans from readily available food sources across the world. A special thank you to each one of our Patreon members for making the News on the Night Shift possible. We wouldn't be here without you. This evening's news is also brought to us in part by USABerkeyFilters.com. If you plan on filtering a lot of water when a disaster strikes, use the code FSS10. You'll get 10% off of any ceramic order. And ReadyMadeResources.com, a leader in night vision and communication sales. Make sure you use the code NM1. You'll receive a free meal with any order that you make. As always, from Kelly and I to you and yours, please stay safe and keep watch.
Alrighty, let's see. Got one here from We Are Change titled, "The U.S.-Mexican Border is Closing?" ? Actually, 3 question marks, but who's counting?
Spring is here, and we are seeing a huge influx of people trying to cross into the United States from Mexico. Well, everyone except for this gringo that's trying to get the hell out of here as fast as he can. And it was pretty funny. I met Jeff here in Arizona, literally with Trump announcing that he may soon close down the U.S.-Mexican border, with Jeff, of course, freaking out. I'm going to let him talk about that in just a little bit. But in this specific video, we are going to be talking about the topic of immigration from an apolitical, anarchistic point of view, from a political, realistic point of view, and also an economic point of view, because, Jeff, you're mostly a kind of financial, big money guy, a crypto guy. You've been on Fox Business a lot of times. You have a newsletter, a financial one, which, of course, more people will be able to find out in the description below. But first of all, let's talk about this immigration thing, because you weren't really happy finding out that you may not be able to leave America, which, of course, is the opposite problem that a lot of people are having, with, of course, a huge influx, a larger influx, with a lot of Border Patrol scrambling to assess the situation and take care of it. So just tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, sort of my biggest nightmare is to be caught in the U.S. and then not to be able to get back to the land of the free in Mexico. So it's a little disturbing. But then at the same time, I remembered it was Donald Trump who said it, and he says a lot of things, and he doesn't really follow through on many of them. But very interesting time, and hopefully I can get out before if he does something.
Well, this is what's interesting, because there's been such a huge influx. I mean, there's horrifying pictures coming out of people under highways, being put in parking lots. There's even local churches and community organizers that do help out the people who are saying that on average they dealt with 200 to 300 people. Now they're saying they're dealing with 800 people per day. And of course, the situation is getting to such a complexity that Trump is just openly saying, hey, Mexico, do something or we're going to shut down the border. But again, the problem is not just left and right, as we talked about earlier. It's not just black and white. It's not just you're for immigration or you're not for immigration. How do you handle this kind of scenario from an anarchistic point of view, but also a realistic point of view? Because again, there's a lot to unravel here with this bigger issue that, of course, is just ultimately hurting people and dividing and conquering them. But how do you deal with this issue, especially from an anarchistic, no government point of view?
Well, I have to point out all these problems are caused by government. It's clear that without governments, if we had a truly free market, we wouldn't have many of these problems. Many of them are caused by government. You look, even the Honduran government, for example, they're creating so many problems in their own country that a lot of people want to get out of there. And where do they want to go? Well, there's a large, giant, pretty much the biggest government in the world here in the U.S. that has a very socialist, has welfare, has public schools, all those sort of things. So it's fairly natural in that sort of situation for people to want to go from one place to another. But again, it is all caused by government. In a free market, you really wouldn't see that. that. If there wasn't socialism here in the U.S. and if there wasn't freebies for nearly everything, a lot of people would have a lot less incentive to want to come here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because just covering the situation on the ground in Tijuana during, of course, when the media was paying attention to it. Now we're seeing them pay more attention to it because of course, the bombastic Trump comments, because of this huge political fight for the border wall. But the situation was really absolutely crazy. The amount of people suffering from this, being taken advantage of, is just absolutely insane. And as you were talking about, and as I saw on the ground, people are just being sent up here saying, hey, there's free jobs up there. There's free opportunities. Come and get them. You'll be able to walk in, right in through. And a lot of people I talk to, especially from a lot of the countries that Trump just cut foreign aid to, just openly were like, oh yeah, I'm here to work. I'm here most of them didn't even know what asylum was. Now, a lot of the people crossing into the borders in the hundreds of thousands, in the millions, are saying, yes, we want asylum. The system is being overburdened. And obviously, how do you think this is going to, pan out financially? Because on one aspect, it'll be interesting to get your take on the kind of social welfare aspect of it, because states like California and New York are ultimately almost close to going bankrupt. The United States is also bankrupt $22 trillion now. But financially, what would happen if the border was closed between Mexico and the United States?
No one knows, but that would be probably the biggest event sort of on a global economic level in probably decades. These are two major trading partners. The amount of trade happening between the two countries is absolutely massive. When I first heard it, I was pretty shocked. Like if he actually does, I don't think that they will. But if they do, it will have massive repercussions. You'd have millions of job losses on both sides of the border. You'd have a major economic recession or depression on both sides of the border. It would cause massive amounts of chaos. And if I personally can't get back to Mexico, I'm going to become a terrorist here in the U.S.
Well, that's a strong word. I think I'm going to see you here in Arizona crossing back into the United States. I don't think that's a terroristic activity, but yeah, you shouldn't say that. No.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I would not be pleased if I can't get back into Mexico where my wife and kids are. This is the amount of disruption that could be caused, just massive amounts. There really should not be this level of deterring people from going where they want to go, and that's what they're talking about here. And really, what this a lot of this is contrived, in my opinion. You see a lot of these entourages coming up, and we hear about how they're getting some freebies down there to come up to the U.S., and I think it's really to get people into a fear-based sort of a situation where they are actually demanding less freedom, and they're saying, hey, shut us down, put a wall around us, make it so we can't come in and out easily, and that's all by design, in my opinion.
Yeah, it also not only creates more government, but also creates a divide and conquer kind of situation where people are not liking each other, hating each other because of these lines, because of also cultural things, because of also these two kind of different lands being jammed in together, with of course the pure benefit of ultimately, let's just be honest here, the globalists. Because when you import cheap labor, you of course have cheaper labor in the market. If you have an abundance of something, the value of it will naturally go down. If you have an abundance of workers, obviously this is going to have a detrimental effect, not only on the people coming here who are being forced into pretty much slave labor, pretty much working underneath the books without any kind of protection or anything else, which some people would even call exploitation. But at the same time, the other person working, like an average American living here, is like, oh, we don't need to pay him as much, because again, that economic value is also a big aspect here, and that's not really talked about. In the media, it's either you're for immigration or not immigration. Again, the issue is so far more complex. But I would even question, again, I disavow your other statement that you just made, but I would even question the possibility of this, because Trump has been pretty kind of bombastic, not only with his words. I mean, that's always been the case with him, but now it's kind of also with his actions, and he has been not only emboldened politically after the big Russian collusion thing came out as a lie, which we've been calling out from the very beginning, but he's been also saying a lot of, and doing a lot of things with Golan Heights, with bombing Syria, moving the embassy in Jerusalem, and actually committing acts that have surprised a lot of people, because people said he would never do such things, and he is. So what's your kind of take of this Trump presidency that's been unfolding? And again, I find it incredibly difficult to document, because on one hand, he called himself a nationalist and a globalist at the same time, creating a very confusing, paradoxical situation to break down politically, because it's not just black and white. But what do you make of it? Do you see it in black and white?
Well, nothing in this world is black and white, that's for sure. But to me, it's fairly obvious what's going on. This has been going on for decades now in the U.S. They put in someone extremely left in, and then they put in someone extremely right afterwards, and then half the country gets all happy, the other half gets all unhappy. They put in Obama, all the right people get mad. Then they put in before that was Bush. Then they put in Trump, and then all the right people are happy. But nothing's really changed. They're still at war all over the world. The U.S. troops are still all over the world. They're still going to massive amounts of debt. And I remember Donald Trump saying in the presidential primaries, or whatever they call them, that he was going to balance the budget and he was going to reduce the debt to zero. He said it was just a matter of pennies here and pennies there. It's had the biggest deficits now under Trump. Every month, actually, it gets bigger and bigger. And you actually can't stop it. The U.S. government's bankrupt. In fact, a lot of what we're talking about here will be almost irrelevant in a few years, because we're going to see all these governments collapse. We're going to see major fiat currencies going into hyperinflation. All of these problems that people are worried about today we'll have much bigger problems to deal with. But really, Trump hasn't changed much. I remember he said he was going to get out of Syria. That has not happened. He even talked about possibly restricting the Federal Reserve or getting rid of the Federal Reserve. That has not happened. He's talked about so many things, a wall on the Mexican border, obviously. But at the end of the day, there really hasn't been that many changes. It's all sort of smoke and mirror changes. It's just who's talking in front of the camera has changed, but the actual policies have not changed.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that there's a lot of kind of nuances to a lot of this, with also a lot of people from Latin America moving back to their countries away from the United States, and also people like you, people who are immigrating down to, of course, Mexico, and finding a new life there and finding it a lot different here. Because I even had this conversation with a friend last night, and we were talking, and I'm like, here you have permits, you have regulations, you have all these licenses. In Mexico, you just give someone $5 and you can do whatever you want. And it brings in a kind of paradox of which system is best for you or right for you, or which one is more freer. But again, there's so many other kind of nuance points. Anything else you want to say about just kind of the bigger perspective of what you see there on the ground? Because you're in Mexico, you live there, and what your kind of experience is with this kind of overall political situation that's unfolding.
Well, I would say it's really a lot of propaganda that the U.S. is being flooded with Mexicans. By statistical numbers, it really looks like more Mexicans have left the U.S. every year than gone to the U.S. for the last 10 years. And when I talk to a lot of people down in Mexico, they say, well, there's two reasons. There's a lot less free up there, and the economy isn't that great up there. It's actually been improving a lot in Mexico. So a lot of that propaganda that the U.S. is being flooded by Mexicans is quite untrue. Now, of course, Hondurans and other people, that's a little bit different. But then you also look at the other angle. There's literally millions of undocumented illegal alien Americans in Mexico, and it's actually become an issue in Mexico a little bit, which is kind of funny. But it's a lot. Most people don't fully realize what's really going on here. It's not as big of a deal with this massive influx of immigration. It's mostly been propped up by the media, of course. As we know, the media never gives us the real information. But down in Mexico, things are really going quite well. It's been improving economically now for years. It's a beautiful place to live. It's very safe in general. There's a few areas you don't want to go to, but there's a few areas in Chicago you don't want to go to either. But we'll see what happens. It's definitely interesting. We'll see what happens. I just think that a lot of this is sort of contrived, and the real goal of it is to, at the end of the day, get people scared enough to actually want a one-world government. That's the end goal of it all, and to create enough chaos through it all that people actually beg for it.
Yep, and to give up your authority and your sovereignty as a free human being to live life and not be controlled, taxed, and regulated and just extorted out of your wealth. So if you want more information about that, definitely check out Jeff Berwick, his YouTube channel, and his newsletter will be in the description below. If you use the promo code WRC, I think you get a 10% discount as a We Are Change viewer. So definitely check that out. Jeff, you've been doing a lot of crazy, incredible work. We've been in so many different places. Just check out We Are Change Somalia, We Are Change Venezuela. You'll see this guy there with me. Long-term, one of my best friends out here. So stay tuned for a lot more adventures here on We Are Change. Subscribe. Stay tuned for a lot more.
Alrighty, and if you use the promo code The Watchman News, it won't work. So I just figured I'd tell you. W7 has a video here titled "For the First Time Ever." I don't know if that's Aramco, something like that, opens its books, revealing it's the world's most profitable company.
A lot of people out there thinking Apple, other companies are some of the biggest in the world. That's all they ever hear about. But they forget that there's companies out there that keep hidden their financial records and all the tracking to it. Very similar to our Federal Reserve that will never let an audit go down. But in this instance, we have Saudi Arabia's biggest company, Aramco, opening its books because it plans to launch a $10 billion bond offering. And in doing so, it's showing everyone how much money it has to back it. And what they're showing is that they are by far the world's most profitable company, smoking Apple and anyone else that dares come anywhere close. They double Apple's profit of $60 billion, 5 times as much as Shell's. And this is all thanks to a surge in oil prices this last year that brought them an income that climbed 50% from $75.9 billion in 2017. Last year, the company earned more than Alphabet, Apple, and Exxon combined. So maybe now you start to get a bead on why certain players out here on this world stage are buddying up to these guys and striking deals. And all too often it seems to be more about business and not about the people. So think about that and who some of the leadership out here is partnering with and what all is going on in these countries. But I wanted to point it out because I think a lot of people every day assume that Apple and these others are the boss hogs and no one is beating them. No one makes more money than them. Well, in this instance right here, today, anyone paying attention is going to find out that the world's most profitable company is from Saudi Arabia. So, per the books and what's out here in the open, I'm not talking black budgets or nothing like that. But I'll leave a link and I'll continue to update as things change. It's been Dabu7.
Alrighty, and Dabu's got another one I'm going to do before we close up titled Another Food Recall, Beef Products Recalled Over Potential E. coli Contamination.
A heads up here on another big recall. We have Aurora Packing Company in North Aurora, Illinois, establishing that they are recalling approximately 4,838 pounds of beef heel and chuck tender products that may be contaminated once again with E. coli. It has been it seems like a record amount of recalls over the past year, and now we have another one here. This time they're saying the bulk beef products were produced and packed February 27th, 2019, and the following products are subject to recall, so you might want to check your freezer. So I put these out there, make sure people know what's going on. They're saying that the varying catch weight cardboard box case packages containing bulk pieces of Aurora Angus beef, boneless beef, chuck tender, and case code 61150, varying catch weight cardboard box case packages containing bulk pieces of boneless beef heel meat that has a case code of 29970, and then also the boneless beef heel meat with a case code of 49970 presented on the label. So might want to give it a check between salmonella, E. coli, and all this crap they keep recalling, wood chips, metal, you name it. It's just left and right. This is the latest. Wanted to make sure that people know. I'll leave links below, and as always, make sure to follow me on Twitter for more. It's been Dabu7. Much love, y'all.
Alrighty. With that, I am going to call it a night. I am beat. It's a typical Monday, I'll tell you that. Alrighty, I am off of here. I hope everybody has a good evening. Thank you for coming. Hope to see you tomorrow. As always, God bless you. We love you, and be one with your spirit.